Good morning. We welcome you to day 2 of EDGE22. Thank you for being here. Even though it's day 2, you know that this is our 3rd day, and we had quite a bit of very stimulating and many times enlightening sessions, and we talked about innovation, data analytics, biometrics, health IT, cyber, ransomware, even workplace transformation, law enforcement, especially state and local perspectives, blockchain, cryptocurrency, the security related to all that, and machine learning, among other things. So if I missed anything, I apologize, but these are a lot of the topics, and I know you had a great time yesterday. We promised you a fun, short program today. And to carry on the theme, one of the key themes of innovation, we're going to talk about drones, or many of which are also known as UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, and in the next 2 hours. So we'll know all about what these things do today and the future. We will also be discussing, and we have a stellar panel, Cyber Outlook 2022, especially from the state and local perspectives, and that's very near and dear to our heart. This is where we live and work, so we look forward to that. Next panel, we'll discuss protection of the grid. I know we heard a lot about the infrastructure bill, a lot of which will be funding the protection of our nation's grids. And then we have Colonel Teeter will address everything about the national security and the U.S. Space Command, where all the action is these days. Don Zoldai, who is retired Air Force colonel and is a licensed attorney, CEO currently of P3 Tech Consulting. She's our subject matter expert on all about drones. She'll tell you everything we need to know and much more. So with that, I hand it off to the conference, and we'll talk to you soon.
A few decades ago, drones were confined to science fiction or notions of the future. Today, unmanned aircraft systems, or drones, are rapidly becoming a part of our everyday lives. They're quickly increasing in numbers and complexity. The ways we use drones range from recreation to commercial to government and military applications. In commercial applications, drones provide accurate information and support for myriad applications in the insurance, construction, and mapping sectors. For consumer applications, 79% of Americans are comfortable with package delivery by drones, and companies like Amazon are engaged in advanced proofs of concept, with drone package delivery on the near-term horizon. For state and local government, drones combine with advanced analytics and artificial intelligence platforms to provide perimeter security for sensitive facilities, emergency and crisis management, surveillance, healthcare, firefighting, and more. For the U.S. government, drones have been proven invaluable in military applications such as battleground surveillance, the targeting of terrorists and enemy combatants, and perimeter security. Drone technologies also play important roles in weather applications, emergency response, and border security. Nearly 1.8 million drones are registered in the United States today, with the Federal Aviation Administration the primary regulatory authority. As drone utilization increases, questions of privacy, security, and governance to ensure safe utilization present complex challenges. EDGE22 opens its Day 2 plenary session with an unprecedented 2-hour program combining demonstrations by both companies, whose core business is the enterprise application of drones to communications, healthcare, and defense and law enforcement applications. Dragonfly provides advanced mapping, surveying, data collection, and delivery services in areas of telehealth, energy, mining, and infrastructure. Elsight provides absolute connection confidence in the most challenging environments. Both companies will provide on-site and live remote demonstrations across time zones and countries. These demonstrations will be followed by an on-stage executive roundtable of senior government and business professionals whose missions or business directly intersect the drone industry sector. To set the stage and serve as the MC for this program, EDGE22 is pleased to welcome retired Air Force Colonel Dawn Zolai. A licensed attorney and 28-year Air Force veteran, Ms. Zolai is one of America's leading authorities on drone UAV technologies. She is founder and chief executive officer of P3 Tech Consulting, where she connects clients who share her passion for advanced tech platforms, drones in particular, with the policies, programs, plans, and information they need to progress in this rapidly evolving and accelerating sector. Ms. Zolai produces a popular weekly podcast, The Dawn of Drones, where she interviews government and business leaders and practitioners whose mission or work directly intersect the drone technology sector. Please welcome to the stage for the EDGE22 Dawn of Drones program, Dawn Zolai.
Hello, Las Vegas! And hello, everybody out there also watching remotely. So it's so great to be here. And when I met Don Upson, he said, hey, can you help me put together a drone show? And then he also said, can you do your podcast from our event? And then I thought, hey, why don't we just combine the two? So what you're gonna see today is kind of what I'm calling a mega podcast, right? So we're gonna have a lot of folks. We're actually having the cutting edge companies in this industry, industry experts, and incredible organizations here for you today. Most of these folks have actually been on my podcast, and so you may hear me reference, go back and watch that one, because we're not gonna be able to cover everything we wanna cover today. And we're gonna get started. I wanna tell you a little bit about how I got into drones and why I'm so passionate about it. You heard that I was in the United States Air Force, and it was really when I was at US Central Command working for, at the time, General Mad Dog Mattis. Because I was the Air Force person, they said, oh, well, you're the drone person. And so that's when I first got started to learning about drones. And it was my next assignment at Air Combat Command, which is basically, the functional manager for the large drones, the Predators and the Reapers, that I really got into it. And I started the Domestic Imagery Working Group for the Department of Defense and actually crafted the DoD's domestic use policy at that time. Wildfires are a continual thing, and back in 2013, if you recall the California Rim wildfire, I was involved in helping get the first approvals all the way up to the SecDef, and at the time, actually, he did call President Obama to get the additional nod to fly a National Guard Predator for incident awareness and assessment over that wildfire. It was the very first time. I know we have so many Homeland Security experts, law enforcement, military, and business folks that do business with those organizations. What I want to tell you is what I've learned now that I've been also on the commercial side with my military background is so many folks don't appreciate the important synergy and nexus between the military, the federal government, and the civilian sector. And so that is going to be a theme today, this idea of dual-use technologies. And what I hope is by the end of this presentation, it will dawn on you the importance of drones and perhaps how you can employ them in your business, or conversely, how your business can get involved in the drone industry. Because what I'll tell you is that we are not actually at the dawn of drones. Drones have been around for a while, but we are definitely at an inflection point, and it's going to be big. This past year with COVID, if it taught us one thing, it's that drones are the ultimate social distancer. And what we saw was this explosion of drone deliveries, not just in the United States, but globally. Things like medical supplies, COVID test kits, food to remote areas, as one example. Wildland firefighting is another. You saw some of those in the video. So I'm really excited to talk about all of this with you today and with our incredible guests. So being a military person, I like to tell you what I'm going to tell you, then we're going to tell you stuff, and then I'm going to tell you what we told you, right? That's how we do it. So today what you're going to see in this presentation, our first hour is going to be, I'll call it like the demo portion. There'll be a couple fireside chats thrown in there. We're going to take a little break, do some award presentations, and then we're going to get to our panel about drone opportunities and challenges. So that's how the flow is going to go. All right, we're going to kick off the demos now, and I'm really excited. So this week, it's all such a blur. I've been in Vegas too long. And I was at that party last night, by the way, with all of you. So this past week, we kicked off our podcast with an incredible company. You saw a little bit about them in the teaser video, Dragonfly. What I have to tell you is that video broke all records. It's in the top 1% of all live streams right now. And you're not going to be surprised why when you see the CEO, Cameron Schell. He's going to be on here in a second. But Dragonfly is this incredible company. I'd say they're a drone company, but there's so much more. There's a kiosk over here. So during the break, when the lights go on, go over there. It reads your biometrics. It's super cool. And you're going to have some demos here today. Oh, speaking of demos, one thing I have to tell you. As we say in the Air Force, flexibility is the key to air power. And you probably know that there is a state funeral here today. Well, the FAA did issue what they call a TFR, a temporary flight restriction. So they shut down the airspace over Las Vegas. And somehow also internally in the building. So we're not going to be flying drones in here today. But you are going to be seeing drones flown live in Israel, Miami, and South Carolina here in a bit. And we're going to have some other demos as well. And at some point, you get to maybe come up here, or we'll bring them down there, and you get to see these drones up close. You want to take some pictures. So, all right, let's talk about Dragonfly and get Cameron Schell up here, because let's get the show on the road. Dragonfly, award-winning, okay? Award-winning, industry leader in drone technology. They have been in existence for more than 20 years. They continue to revolutionize how drones are being used. So we're talking artificial intelligence, biometrics, all of these things, logistics. They're improving lives and safety. Oh, and get this, they're now also working with the Drone Racing League. So we're going to talk about that and why you should care. Because think about workforce development and inspiring the next generation of folks we need to be able to fly these drones for companies like yours. Okay, let's go ahead and roll that intro video. All right, if that didn't psych you up, woo! Let's get Cam Schell out here and Paul Mullen from Dragonfly. Come on down. Woohoo! Come on in. All right, this is Cam to my right, and beyond that is Paul Mullen. So welcome, gentlemen. Cam, like I said, was just on my record-breaking podcast.
Congratulations.
And by the way, what I didn't mention, we also do a Clubhouse drop-in audio chat. We did that the week prior. That also broke all of our records as well. So we're on a roll there with Dragonfly. And Cam here, if you want to know a little bit about him, he's been a serial entrepreneur since the age of 14. Okay, let that sink in for a second. Serial entrepreneur since the age of 14. So just been doing amazing things. And Paul, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do with Dragonfly.
Yeah, my primary function at Dragonfly, I support our operations, corporate strategy, and what I'm most proud of is our Vital Intelligence Suite. And that really involves us working with fantastic researchers as well as a great operational team to bring this exciting technology to market.
So Vital Intelligence, that's what we're going to talk about first, and we're going to have a little demo with that, right? So can you tell us a little bit about Vital Intelligence and what it is?
Yeah, I think Cam tells that story great. I mean, he's been involved since day one.
We were working with, so Dragonfly, we've been around since the kind of the mid-late-ish 90s. And of course, early in our history, we were building a lot of airframes, lots of engineering. And then that started to migrate more into software and applications because, drones were becoming less hobby-focused and how could you use that? And so we were doing lots of mapping and survey, accident reconstruction, forensic investigation type stuff. And then the applications became more sophisticated, and really today what we're focused on, though we still do all our manufacturing, airframe, all that type of stuff, is really more around AI. And so our view is that the drone industry in general has two kind of synergistic buckets right now that are dominating. One is data and one is delivery. And to be really effective in either one of those, you have to be much more than an airframe companies. So our customers are coming to us. They're not looking for an airframe that flies a bit longer, lasts, looks a bit better, whatever the case is. What they really care about is either the end result, which is what's the data telling us, or was the delivery successful. And so we've for the last number of years we've really been building out with great focus our AI bench. And so the culmination of this right now is the work that Paul has done with his teams. And so a couple of years ago, we had a sheriff's department approach us, and it was right kind of at the height of the pandemic. It was in Connecticut, and this small little town was kind of being accused of being the epicenter of the coronavirus that got into New York. And so they were looking at innovative ways in order to be able to combat the pandemic. So they asked if we could do, if their drones that we have with them could measure social distancing and mask wearing. And so we deployed that within a couple of months, and our AI was able to tell if people were family units or if they were strangers meeting, or if how well they were socially distanced and mask wearing. And so they took that data and they adjusted a bunch of their resourcing and did a bunch of great work with it. So kind of toward the end of that deployment, one of the officers, she said to us, it'd be great if you could detect coronavirus. This is nice, but could you detect coronavirus? And she was kidding, and we all kind of laughed. But 9 months later, we deployed this technology that Paul will demonstrate to you, where literally from a drone, using the cameras, not a specialized camera, it's software and AI driven, we can detect heart rate, respiratory rate, heart rate variability, blood pressure, blood oxygen levels, conjugate, the list goes on. We won't show everything here today, but and then since then we've now deployed it onto kiosks and telemedicine systems and smartphones and the rest of it. And it's game-changing software. And again, it's we're a drone company, but really what our client cared about was being able to detect infectious conditions. And drones collect data better than anything else in the world because of the sensors and the platform that we have. And so this is an innovative example of, I think, that will be game-changing.
That's awesome. So, and I know you deployed this technology at Alabama State?
Yeah, we've deployed the technology into multiple universities. Alabama State has been the leader in this, and no surprise, they probably have if not the lowest COVID infection rate in the country historically over the last couple of years. The incredible leadership there. We have deployed it in other universities who got them, found themselves in tough situations and needed to raise awareness on campus and such. We've deployed it into correctional facilities, sheriff's departments, federal buildings, manufacturing floors. Anywhere where you need to get an immediate assessment of the health condition of a particular population or geographic.
And for this crowd, Homeland Security, beyond law enforcement, right? Homeland Security and disaster response and disaster management as an example. We had that horrific building collapse in Miami as an example. Yeah. Let's just assume for a second there were people in the rubble. We could fly a drone. Could this technology be used to help triage, where the people that were in the most need, where to send those resources first?
So we are standing up this technology today in private partnership with an organization in Texas, along with emergency response systems, for two primary use cases. One is immediate drone response, DFR, drone first response. So it gets on site and you're actually able to assess the people on site. You can tell if somebody's in shock from these vital signs. So that's one application. Those drones will also be used to deliver medical supplies and such. But also, if you could imagine, a disaster response where you've got a flood or an earthquake or whatever, and you've got drones deployed and they're getting there before the boots or the trucks can get on site, providing all that logistical information, road information, power information, whatever is required, but also, hey, triaging, hey, there's a group of survivors here, there's a family here, here's their condition. This condition of this family over here is not as good. They need this equipment now. This is where you've got to get to. That immediate situational awareness for it. But I see very quickly we'll be in a situation where the DFRs will be providing vital sign statistics and information back to the responders arriving that's going to save not just money but time and lives.
Wow, that's amazing. So are you going to show us how this works?
Absolutely, and I think before we drop into that, I think it would be fantastic as well to discuss a little bit what we're actually doing, how we're doing this. And I think
please.
The reason that we love Cam telling that story is that it's always a big gap to bridge around how do you do drones and health technology. And so as Cam mentioned, our AI bench is fantastic. We've got relationships with some very dynamic research groups in North America and in Australia. The Australians do all the heavy lifting. The North Americans figured a way to flip it right side up because it's all upside down. And really what they had done years before COVID was started some pilot projects monitoring preterm infants in the ICU in markets that didn't have adequate health supplies. And so they were able to create, using neurologic and AI and machine vision, a platform that would recognize markers in the face and then be able to build algorithms that would do things like count the rhythmic movement of our chest to monitor respiratory rate, looking at the perfusion of blood through the vasculature of our face, be able to calculate things like oxygen saturation and blood pressure. And it's a fantastic system they built. If you look at it in practical terms, magnifying the video feeds so that you can visually see all of these things, then we can leverage those neural networks to count them and calculate all of those biometrics that, we think that this platform can be deployed ubiquitously on almost anything with a camera. It's very device agnostic. And, as Cam alluded to, we see the future of this platform as being able to deliver, amazing health outcomes, both individually at the community level and then at the government and policymaking level as well with the underlying data.
Well, I remember, Cam, I think it was you that told me, maybe it was on Clubhouse, that there's a lot of telemedicine now, and you're having a conversation with your doctor over the computer, that with that camera, the doctor can now read your vital statistics long distance using this technology.
Yeah,
and the
so remote
software.
Patient monitoring for sure. It's an immediate application. And
that's amazing.
Literally, you can do it over your cell phone or your smartphone with this application as well.
Wow. All right.
Let's do a quick demonstration. And as mentioned, we would have loved to do this on a drone. Unfortunately, we could not. So we've pivoted. Now, the camera that we're using here is an everyday webcam, and we'll look for the tech team to bring our feed up on the screen. I'm going to step in front of the camera.
We can see your face there, and it says scanning. Please keep still. Wait 15 seconds. That's fast. 15 seconds. Paul, you must be nervous. No, actually, your heart rate's not too bad.
There we go.
Blood pressure's looking good, so good on you.
Yeah, so that's what we're looking at. In this application, we're really looking for the presence of infectious conditions. So we're looking for an elevated heart rate. In our kiosk, for example, we've deployed a medical-grade thermal camera that's able to really quickly screen for temperature. We've been able to introduce logic based on CDC guidelines for thermography to pass-fail. And as a result, we're able to, again, really quickly identify from a triage perspective or an adjunct screening perspective, what potential conditions are present with this subject. And we've seen many applications from whether it's in the correctional facilities, screening patient or screening new subject intake, whether it's at school, screening students as they arrive. We really think that the applications here are potentially endless.
All right. Woo-hoo!
Yeah, thank you.
And folks can try this out on your kiosk that's over there.
They sure can.
Later, yeah.
Certainly.
So again, when we have a break, just go over there in the corner. There is a kiosk. You can check this out for yourself. See how your heart rate is right now and your blood pressure. Awesome. And we talked about some of these use cases. What did we miss? Battlefield applications.
Yeah. So there are a couple of number of other use cases that have turned up to be quite important. Maybe a couple quick things of note. There are a lot of companies out there that were using thermal or even infrared to measure temperature, and saying, hey, well, we can detect if somebody has a fever. The challenge with a lot of infectious conditions, and in particular COVID, is that temperature can be very asymptomatic. And you take an aspirin and you don't have a temperature, and there's 55 other reasons you can have a temperature. But if you've got a high heart rate and a low SpO2, you've got an infectious condition. So being able to come up with technologies that could, step in front of, these asymptomatic type problems was really important. And then being able to do it on a drone platform, which, we were really excited to demonstrate here today, which obviously we couldn't because of the restrictions. But, that's the precision that, is now tested. And because it was designed to be, an in-field situation, as you had mentioned. So battlefield applications are obviously combatant assessment, whether friendly or not friendly. It could be, collateral assessment. Who else is in the field that we need to, what are their conditions out there? Are they nervous? Are they displaying, suspicious activity type of physiological conditions? Sniper verification. That's a live pilot that's undergoing right now. The ones that I really like is basically relief agencies using this. So before they're delivering Ebola into a village, they're actually flying the drones and getting the assessment of the village, to get indications of infectious condition rates, including the people that are coming out to receive the vaccines. Lets them give assessment, should they be delivering the vaccines in by drone, who's going to be, how many people are they going to expose to it, what's it, so these are all the very practical applications that we see this being put to work with today.
Now you're working with the Drone Racing League, okay, with this technology, right? So should we pivot to that and talk a little bit about that? Or did we miss anything that you wanted to cover?
No, I think we covered, Cam captured just about everything. I think the common themes as we look at common missions in a connected world, which of course being the theme of the week. I think we look at being able to really extend the platform anywhere and adapt it as well. So I think that's a key piece. We're looking at these conditions with COVID in mind. The platform is very easily adaptable for other infectious conditions and then other potential health monitoring, range of motion, wound care. Those are all discussions that we're having in terms of the integration into the platform. And again, a way to increase accessibility to these metrics and thus drive positive health outcomes.
All right, and Kim, you mentioned data being one of the two major pillars of what we're using drones for, and kind of this technology as well. That, I believe, is your plug-in with the Drone Racing League is kind of data as one big piece of that. So I think we do have a video. Should we roll that first?
Yeah, you bet. That'd be great.
All right, let's check that out. This week, by the way, on Wednesday night, I don't know if you all were looking out your windows or walking by the area outside the T-Mobile Stadium, but the Drone Racing League's World Championship occurred right here in Las Vegas Wednesday night. And this video shows the drone pilot, the racing pilot, with the little green square around his face. So tell us how you're integrating this technology with DRL and the racing, and what you hope to achieve with that.
Yeah, sounds right. So we're really honored and lucky to be selected and able to work as a sponsor with the Drone Racing League. And I just got to throw this out there. The DRL it's not about racing. They're a technology company. Yeah. They really know what they're doing, and they develop incredible product. And when you think about that whole production, it's the integration of like safety and communication and engineering and parts now of AI, and those are all the components that you actually have to integrate in order to have a successful drone operation. And so we really want to push the envelope with them this year with the Drone Racing Dragonfly Innovation Lab. And so we've got G5 drones and autonomous drones and a number of different initiatives that we're really going to be pushing in with the league this year, so that we can have them battle tested, if you will, as we bring them out to commercial markets. One of the areas obviously was to be able to use the VI technology. And so a lot of people, they question whether e-sport is actually a sport. But when you put the VI technology, and put a camera on the racers, and they're racing, whether it's in a sim or whether it's a live race, you see what's going on physiologically with them. And so they're actually using that data to make themselves better racers, to design the courses, to look at what the crowd is reacting to, and quite frankly, now even DraftKings, who makes a line on the DRL, is kind of looking at it and going, hey, is this important draft racing line data? So it's really interesting what's coming out of it, but it is a real use case which demonstrates not just the uses of the technology, but actually the actual buoyancy and solidity of the technology as well.
Well, we're almost out of time, I think, for this session here, but we're going to get you on this panel later, so we're excited to talk to you more, Cam. And thank you so much, Paul, for showing us the VI demonstration.
Amazing. No, thank you.
I believe we have one more video to roll.
At Dragonfly, we are committed to continuing to invest in future innovators that will build technology that, above all else, provide solutions once thought impossible.
Thank you both so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Don. You're awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you, Don.
All right. All right. As they walk off the stage, I'm going to start introducing our next guest. You may have noticed in the video that with the Drone Racing League, not only are they using Dragonfly's VI technology, they're also spraying the arenas and the areas with the drone to protect it, especially in this era of COVID. Well, Dragonfly is partnering with an amazing company called Global Aerial Management Group. CEO Tony Drummond is with us here today, so hopefully she can come out here. As Tony walks out to the stage, I hope, just tell you a little bit about Tony. She started the company about a year or so ago, in the midst of COVID, actually. She comes from a long history of aviation, has been working with private charter jet companies, and brilliantly created what she's calling jet-to-stage solution. So a lot of entertainment industry clients were very concerned. As the stages were starting to open up, she started the drone disinfecting. So they'd clean the jet, they'd clean the stage, they got entertainment back on the stage, and it's pretty incredible. And oh, by the way, just brag for a second, this week as well, Women in Drones had the Women to Watch 5th Anniversary Global Awards Program. Tony and Global Aerial Management Group were named the Volatus Aerospace Innovation Team of the Year for 2021. So let's give her a hand.
Thank you.
Woohoo!
Thank you, Dr.
So Tony, I just want to take a second and talk a little bit about what you're doing with drones and how you are making a difference with drones.
Sure. So my story is a little different. I'm an aviator by nature. I've been in aviation, private aviation, for 25 years. And the concept of using drones really came because our client, out of need, out of complete necessity, our clients were, looking for ways to get back into the theaters and be able to keep their shows moving. So as an aviator, I have their plane ready, they're ready to go, but they have no way to get there. So we started to look into technologies that would be able to help us with that. And we stumbled upon the drone industry. So we started just offering a jet to stage deal where we fly the clients, and then when they get there, we come in, we do our jet to stage, we spray, and everybody's safer, and it's been working. So this year has been just a whirlwind for us. We've been all over the map. We're coming out into different sectors, and we're using technology to make people feel safer when they travel and to make people feel safer in an entertainment environment.
Well, and I know you're probably all thinking, okay, why do we care about the entertainment industry? Well, you've been also working with critical infrastructure.
Yes.
So, fun fact, I also write for Inside Unmanned Systems magazine, and Tony was one of the people I interviewed for a feature about drone use in critical infrastructure this past August, so you can check that out. It's also on my website. But, you know, there's 16 sectors of critical infrastructure, and the government buildings is one of them.
Right.
And you've been spraying schools.
We have.
Yeah.
We've gone into schools. We've gone into certain environments. We're doing research with hospitals. We've done all types of stuff and it's different products that we're using as well. So even integrating, starting to use, working with Dragonfly and using their VI technology to adapt to what we currently have with the spraying is going to be a life changer for so many different sectors. The education side of it is so important because it spreads so quickly, and we're also working with, on top of that, we've figured out there's different uses for some of these sprays. Some of them might be used for mold remediation, they're used for mold prevention, so we're now able to use these same technologies in humanitarian missions. So it's been just a learning process. It's only been 12 months for us, but as we explore and we build this business, it's an overwhelming amount of information of how drone technology is going to start affecting what we do on a daily basis. So
absolutely, and I know you and I have talked before about this idea, you know, like just say, if you could go back in time after like Hurricane Katrina, you know, and so much mold, you know, these products can be used for mold remediation.
Yes, that's right.
You know, which not only affects obviously critical infrastructure and buildings, but also, you know, people's health.
Right.
So that's really exciting, and I know you're looking forward to employing that this coming year.
We do. We have at least 2 to 3 humanitarian missions planned, and those are still in the works, but they are going to have to do with especially hurricanes. We're looking at Florida. We're going to be heading down there after some of the unfortunate situations that we know will come this year, and we're going to get into some of these areas that maybe can't handle some of this mold, and we've worked with separate companies that are going to come in, and we're going to do some pro bono spraying for them. So that's our team is really looking forward to that.
Well, that's so awesome. And as I said, Tony was actually on my podcast this past August as well. So you can check that out if you want to hear a little more detail, because we're on a tight schedule here. We've got a lot of stuff to cover. I knew we wouldn't be able to cover all that.
Okay.
But if folks want to get in touch with you and learn a little bit more about your 100% women-owned business and what you're doing with Global Aerial Management Group, how do they do that?
Yes, you can reach us right on our website, globalaerialgroup.com. And like I said, we have a nice hybrid of manned and unmanned aviation that we put together, and really working on drones for good and different services that we're going to be providing. So yeah, follow us along and see where our journey goes. It's going to be fun.
And I think we do have a little video of drone spraying.
They do,
so let's go ahead and roll that.
We have Dragonfly's drone.
It's a really big deal. There has not been a NASCAR Cup Series race in Nashville in 37 years, since 1984. One of the reasons that we wanted to partner with Dragonfly was to take every precaution to ensure that we were safe here. And so the disinfecting of our stands and our grandstands between all of our races is one of the key components of that. And the way that they do it with the drones, which is so innovative and so creative, is right in line with the kind of organization and frankly the kind of reputation we're seeking to build for Nashville Superspeedway, which is one that marries tradition with innovation and creativity.
So this is definitely going to be a new reality moving forward. The fan and customer, they have a new expectation for cleanliness and sanitization in the facilities they go to. Dragonfly's drone takes the sanitizing spray up, and our drone pilot pilots the drone while the spray is spraying all the bleachers and seats. If you think about how long it takes one person with a bucket of solution to scrub the seats of a giant stadium, it's not cost effective. We can spray 40,000 seats in a couple of hours.
If I had to hire people to come out and clean all 40,000 seats here for the weekend, that would take way too long. We couldn't get it accomplished. And so using the drones to actually put down that solution, which dries quickly, which is not harmful to people, and which is organic, is something that made a whole lot of sense for us.
All the surfaces that you touch are going to have a 24-hour barrier of protection, and we can customize the Dragonfly solution, whether it's spraying outdoors at a stadium, spraying inside, hitting the locker rooms and the concessions, or using our Vital Intelligence program to screen all of the vendors for infectious disease symptoms.
Whether it's the coronavirus or whether it's the common cold or flu, keeping ourselves and our fans and our customers safe is something that will always be a priority to all of us in the industry.
And this is that spraying drone, by the way. We had hoped to spray in here, but we weren't able to do that today. But more to follow, I'm sure. So anyway, Tony, any final words before you depart the stage?
No, I'm just grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to be part of the COG and the technology moving forward. As a woman-owned company, it's been just magic for us to start from nothing and really understand where our place is going to be moving forward with this industry. We're super excited for the technology to come.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Okay,
thanks for coming
thanks
again.
for having me, Dawn.
All right, as Tony's departing, we are now going to bring on Jamar Williams from Promo Drone. I met Jamar actually here in Las Vegas in September at an event called the Commercial UAV Expo. It's every year. And we got to talking, and he told me, hey, I'm a Part 107 pilot, and I'm a communicator, and I have this really cool technology that I've attached to my drone. So when you think, I don't know, is anybody here from the Jersey area, tri-state area? Hands, okay, woohoo, I'm from Philly, by the way. So, you know, Jersey Shore, you're sitting on the beach and you see the biplane fly by and it's got the little flag, right, attached to it. He's taken this to a whole different level. Jamar, welcome, have a seat.
Thank you, thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jamar's telling me all about his product and the fact that he's been able to attach something to a drone and fly it around different events, but it's a whole different experience. So Jamar, welcome, first of all.
Thanks for having me. Great event, glad to be here.
So tell us, we've got two of your drones here. Two versions of your system, we'll call it. Can you explain what they are?
Absolutely. So to my left, we have our current gen. It's a static banner solution. It's pretty much used at concerts, conferences, anything outdoor where there's large gatherings of people. We don't fly over people. We fly adjacent to them in shrubbery, open space. And it allows marketers to have a more connected and engaging experience with the brands that they represent and potential customers. So they see the drone. It's a black dot on a white page kind of experience. It elevates the marketing and communications experience to another level.
Could you try again?
I think you have. It elevates to another level, and it gives fans a more exciting and memorable experience, especially families. What I'm excited about what we're doing at Promo Drone is we're kind of removing the veil of the drone industry. A lot of the operations are clandestine, surveying, and that's great stuff, but what we're doing is we're putting a spin on it and we're making it client-facing and fan-facing, so they're actually wanting to engage with the drone as opposed to wondering who's behind the operation. So very clearly it'll be broadcast. To my right, we have a digital enclosure, which is going to up the ante, where instead of static advertising, we can now do programmatic, hyper-targeted information that will change in accordance to whatever brand or promotion wants to be offered in real time. And we have machine learning that we're building into it for facial capture that will allow for audience demographics. So we'll know the types of customer that are responding to your advertisement, male, female, outwardly observable features without personally identifying information. If you choose to participate through way of QR code or any access point that is being displayed, then you can opt in for private information at that point to win a prize pack or some kind of concession. But we're looking at major themed events, stadiums, NFL, NASCAR, you name it, to have this to create a smart stadium experience. We can upgrade your venue to be safer, more engaging, and to provide data not only on the types of audience that's focused on your ad, but what about the bad guys, the bad people, right? So what if someone has a weapon, pipe bomb, anything that fits our script, while the drone's advertising, displaying information for a customer, looking for faces to count, tick off a box to say what types of audience members, it's sending information to third-party first responders if there's flagged for a weapon or anything in the audience. So now families that are coming to events that are spending hundreds of dollars on these tickets and $20 for a beer, now you can feel safe, have peace of mind. The venue can attract really exciting sponsorship opportunities, monetize it, and then you have that safety element that can drive down insurance costs. It's great for PR to say you have these kind of things built in, and we're experimenting. We're looking to build our operations and expand, and eventually be in some of the biggest and best venues in the world.
That's awesome, and so you can see. I mean, we had Dragonfly and then Global Aero Management Group, and now PromoDrone. You can see this nexus, this dual use, commercial and government side that this technology can bring, even simultaneously in a commercial venue. This is a perfect example of that, Jamar. Now, you said you have a QR code, I think, on this system over here.
Yep.
So I don't know if the camera person is able to beam in on that.
It was rotating. I might have to put it back up at the end. But before I leave, I'll make sure it's back up on the screen. Yeah, it rotates through response.
It's going to stay up on there. So, folks, if you get your camera and you train it on there, then when the QR code is up, it'll take you to
our website.
Your
website. Learn a little bit more about our business.
You can check out PromoDrone a little bit more deeply if you'd like to, using that QR code, and just test the technology. That's what basically you would be using in any venue.
Yep.
Okay,
absolutely.
Very good. And I also believe we do have a video for you too.
Yeah, we sent the video.
All right, maybe we can roll that. Now, Jamar is going to be on my podcast in March. I'm dedicating the entire month to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I'm so glad you're going to be on that podcast. But I also wrote an article for Drone Life. If you all are interested in drones at all on the commercial side, if you really want to get great insight on what's happening out there and think through, hey, is there an application for my business, or is there a way I can plug in here? DroneLife.com is something you want to subscribe to, and that article was a couple months ago, I believe.
I think just in December or November.
Yeah, DroneLife.com. Yeah. So check that out. It's also up on my website. So it was so fun to write that and get to know like what you are doing with this company. So I know we have a huge Homeland Security, law enforcement, military crowd, and you kind of alluded to a little bit, public safety. Mm-hmm. But I think as we were setting up, you had a message that was scrolling through over there.
We have Amber Alerts. You can program into it, absolutely. Missing person notifications. What we envision as well is it's to bring a more human experience to a tactical situation. You've got Border Patrol where there's human subjects that are in a very emotional state. You have to secure and keep things safe, but you also have humans you have to deal with. Now you're able to live feed an operator that may speak a language and they see a human face on a screen. And you talked about triage earlier. Now you can have a first responder or somebody that's in the field incapacitated, someone that can observe and see what's happening, give you instructions real time. You can see that person's face and potentially be walked through how to have a better outcome for that situation. So sky's the limit, no pun intended.
So you basically put a face, you basically put a face to a drone.
Yep.
And you've humanized it.
Humanized it.
Not just for marketing, but for ways that can be so important. I know, having interviewed some search and rescue folks, especially for swiftwater rescue as an example, it's those first couple of minutes when people panic because they think no one's going to come to get them, that most people drown. And if you can have a drone and they can see a face that can gently tell them, don't worry, remain calm, we're coming to get you, just imagine that. The lives that will be saved. So, Jamar, I think they might have said it on there, but how can people get in touch with you and learn more about PromoDrone?
Yeah, our website's www.promo-drone.co, but we'll have the QR. That's the easiest way. Use our tech to find us. And but before I part, I have something for you. I wanted to just, tech different. We couldn't fly today, so I wasn't able to put your banner up, but I wanted to print a little banner for you to keep in your office just to,
thank you so
to
much.
commemorate the experience.
So cool, look. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's awesome.
Appreciate it. All right. PromoDrone, everybody. Jamar Williams. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is so cool. This is going up. I revised my office a little bit, so the podcast is going to have a new look this year. This is going up on the wall. All right, so as Jamar is walking off the stage, we're now going to transition into some, I'm going to call them live demos because they are, but they're remote. We're going to be seeing drones from Israel, Miami, and South Carolina all at the same time. I am Italian, so I'll be flailing that thing around if I don't put it down. And two incredible companies are collaborating on this. This, by the way, if you noticed some of the videos, if you're not deep into this drone space, Part 107 is what these pilots are operating under. And it requires that the drone remain in the visual line of sight. So even as you saw that drone disinfecting, that pilot was walking, right, with the drone there. What you're going to see today is what we call beyond visual line of sight, or BVLOS. This is huge because this is going to make the drone industry scalable and repeatable and finally have it really, really take off. And these two companies from Israel are making that happen. EDGE22 is a company that, by the way, was on my podcast in November for Innovation Month. Benny Farkas and Scott Jonas were on there talking about their technology that basically sniffs out the right connectivity for these beyond visual line of sight operations to make sure the drone never loses connection and can fly. And they've already conducted more than 10,000 deliveries in Israel, drone deliveries using their Halo system. And then we have Highlander, which is also an Israeli-based company that's a drone service provider. Now, a lot of the folks that started up these companies, if you know a little bit about Israel, you know a lot of folks go into military service there. They've got kind of a path, either military service or some other kind of service. So we have a lot of former special operators that are now running these companies and have that military background experience. And these technologies were first employed on military drones in Israel. In fact, if I recall correctly, Benny told me during our interview that it took them several years for the Israeli government to approve the exportation of their technology because it is so critical and so important. But it is available now. So let's go ahead and I think we're gonna have some folks up on the screen if I recall quickly, but before we do that, we're gonna roll a short video about a search and rescue scenario.
Time. They use it to travel with a friend, to take a coffee break. It moves slowly, when they appreciate the beauty of nature. But sometimes beauty can be dangerous. And time is everything. Every action is a click away. And limits, they do not exist. Be ready for action from any site and connect everyone in real time. A task that seems far is closer than ever. Saving their lives has never been easier.
Very cool. So I think we're going to have our colleagues. Now, unfortunately, they could not fly here from Israel to be with us in person, but we should be able to get them up on the screen here shortly, I believe. And who you're going to see is two individuals. Alon Abelson, there he is at the top, okay, I think he's on the top there. There's Alon. Alon is the CEO of Highlander. Alon was in the Israeli Air Force, and he is an expert in air traffic control, filling various positions with the Air Force there. He commanded several different airports and Northern Flight Control Unit. As he left the Israeli Air Force at the rank of major, and he continues on in the reserves. He's still doing air traffic control for the Israeli Air Force. So, Alon, thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
Awesome. So Alon, you are going to walk us through what we're going to see, I believe.
Yeah, that's exactly. So first of all, thank you, Don, and thank you for inviting us to be part at EDGE 2022. In the next 10 minutes, we will see how Highlander is putting drone fleet management on autopilot. We will create an intelligent centralized system that controls entire fleets of 10 or 20 or even 100 drones seamlessly, no matter how busy the skies are. We eliminated the high cost of pilots and their mistakes by removing the human factor from the game. And actually, Don, Highlander's solution autonomously manage the individual drones, the routes, and their tasks without any need for human pilots. And Don, here is the kicker. Highlander is a software-only solution, instantly and remotely syncing with any off-the-shelf drone, big or small, basic or advanced, brand name or no-name. We are controlling quadcopters, VTOLs, tethered drones. We can convert any type of drone in the market into a tactical drone in just 10 seconds. So today we are going to see the big advantage and the power of a centralized command center based in Israel that manages multi-types of drones in multiple locations. We are going to do different types of mission in real time. And if to date only the drone pilot could see the feeds that coming from the drone, in a minute you will see how we are changing the game. And not only the command center is involved, but also the forces on the ground. So in Miami, we are going to see a search and rescue mission supported by drones. In South Carolina, we will see a drone in DFR mission. DFR is a drone as a first response. And at the same time in Israel, drone going to fly at nighttime doing RAS mission, robotic aerial security, as you can see in the video, in one of the neighborhoods searching for intruders. So Don, back to you.
All right, excellent. We're really excited to see this. I hope that we have 5 QR codes hidden out there somewhere under seats, but looking to the side of the stage here, if we don't and we have those in the back, if someone could hand those out randomly to 5 folks in the audience, that would be absolutely spectacular. We're going to get back to that, but what that QR code will allow 5 people to do is go ahead and see in real time on your own phone, like basically you were a tactical control officer and seeing what is happening on the screen, but right on your own phone. So I'm hopeful that someone back there can make that happen for us if we haven't done that. So do we have QR codes? We got them, woohoo! All right, so we've got our 5 winners, amazing. Okay, well hold on to that, and we are going to get back to you. So great that you've got that going, terrific. And I believe, Alon, we're going to first go to Israel, right? We're going to see what you're doing there in Israel.
Yeah, and meanwhile, you can scan the codes and get the live feed. As you mentioned, we'll go back to them. So yeah, we are switching to Israel, and we got a 911 call reporting on a potential suspect in the neighborhood, and now we are flying directly to the location. As you can see in the video, the command center is actually sending the drone to the location. He's targeting the place that you want to put the drone and the place that you want to target and look at with the small eye that you can see here, and everything happening in what we call near real time, controlling remotely. So if we are changing the eye a little bit, you can see how it move and change in the video. We don't need to worry about the location that we're targeting. The gimbal, the angle will change automatically based on the location that we're targeting. And this is part of our algorithm that managing everything to help the, what we call non-professional pilot to do the mission. We can use the arrow, we can use the eye, you can centralize the gimbal. And in a minute, we are going to go again to the street.
So I have a question for you, Alon.
Yep.
What time is it there in Israel? Because that's the top screen on the far right. It's very dark there. What time is it there?
Yeah, so we're in, now we are around 7 p.m. and about the light, so definitely we can actually control all the drone's payloads, including cameras, speakers, lights, and also the thermal camera. So if you want us, we can change to thermal camera, and you will see in thermal exactly what we can see right now at night. So we are switching. Okay.
So you just turned on a thermal camera so we could see better because it was too dark?
Yeah, exactly. And you can see how easily to change it from the command center to play with the palettes, different types of thermal camera, and everything happening remotely. From here, from the command center, you can sit anywhere. In 2-3 minutes, we're going to do the same thing on drones that flying in South Carolina and in Miami. So we can see few people here, and let's see what is happening in the site.
Okay, so we can see people walking around. Is there something happening there that you're simulating?
Yeah, I believe so. Let me see. So if you will see in the bottom of the screen, we can see, I think it's a suspect. So let's track him. 1 minute, we'll start the fly after him.
So is that the suspect in the car? The cars are driving?
No, I think this is the person that's running.
Oh, he's running to the right?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's go after him.
I see a person running down the street.
Exactly. And by the way, from this point, we are streaming live feed to the forces on the ground and providing them an aerial point of view of what is happening on the site. So in a minute, they will see what is happening in the neighborhood, what is happening. You can see the person running, and I think dogs after him. And here is the police car. 1 minute, we'll do a zoom in.
So he's hopping a fence?
Yeah, this is the person.
So from an evidentiary standpoint, if I was law enforcement, this can be recorded, and if I catch this guy, I can maybe use this in court?
Exactly. We are storing everything as evidence, and you can see now the policeman running after him and entering to the garden. Okay, now we have him. Great. Okay, so this is a point of view, and the policeman all the time getting the live feed. So we actually understand the area and where the people are moving. So he's getting an aerial support from a drones flying from the command center.
And you're controlling that nowhere near where this is actually happening, is that correct?
Exactly, yeah. And everything happening remotely. This is the big advantage, to be able to get a point of view, aerial point of view of what is happening everywhere that drones under the organization are flying.
Okay, so now we just transitioned at the top. Is this Miami?
Yeah, exactly. So we are moving very fast to Miami. And I want to show you something more exciting than what we saw before. Exactly for these cases, we created a remote cockpit mode that allows command center to actually feel like they are flying and sitting inside the drone. So in a minute, we will move to a remote cockpit. You don't enter remote cockpit, please. And this is what we call HUD mode. HUD, it's a head-up display providing all the necessary information to the remote pilot from heading, altitude, speed, etc. A very good feeling like we are flying and sitting inside the drone.
I mean, the picture is so clear. I feel like I'm there.
Yeah, exactly. So we are feeling like we are sitting in the front of the drone. Now you can see the analytics, the detection. So we are not providing only more eyes from the command center. We can also provide the command center a real-time detection and tracking and what we call autonomous monitoring and inspection. So we can track people, cars, and everything happening in real time. You can see also on the map where they are located at, so we are getting map oriented.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
And then I think we were going to next look at South Carolina.
Yeah, so we are flying very fast and continue to South Carolina. Let's see what is happening there. Ido will click on the drone, and in a minute we will get the video from South Carolina. That's it. In this case, we are just getting the live feed and giving the pilot to lead the flights. It's helping the command center to create what we call situational awareness by getting the full picture and what is happening on the side. So the pilot is actually flying the drone, is in line of sight. We are getting the live feed to the command center and helping him to get the decisions. I think also the guys that got the share link can see all the videos if you want to check with them.
And just to be clear, just so I heard you correctly, you are flying all three of these drones or controlling them essentially from a command center in Israel.
Yeah, so all the commands coming from the command center. In some drones, we are flying what you mentioned beyond visual line of sight, using L-site capabilities. We'll talk about it in a minute. And few drones we can work in line of sight, some kind of hybrid solution that involve the pilot in the middle, and we can send the pilot the mission that we want him to do and getting feedback from the site.
So it looked kind of easy where you're just like clicking buttons, moving the little eyeball around. How easy is that to do?
Easier than you think. You want to try to fly drone in Israel?
So you seriously want a lawyer to fly a drone from a stage in Las Vegas in Israel right now?
Let's.
All right, let's give it a shot.
You have a computer there?
I'm going over. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
Give me a second.
Meanwhile, Don, can we check with the guys that got the live feed if they are, if they can see all the drones that flying?
Trying to find my bookmarks. Hold on, I'm just getting connectivity.
Let us know if you have connection.
I don't know if the Ethernet is working. This is finding, okay, hold on. Give me a second here. I'm gonna have to cut and paste. My bookmark isn't working. As we say, flexibility is the key to air power, right? So I did, being a good colonel, I did have a backup here. So give me a second. I'm going to have to open that link.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, it's firing up. Mission control.
By the way, you are going to fly LVM-10. Okay, just make sure that you are choosing the right drone and send him to a mission in Israel.
All right, so I am in, and I am going to click on the little drone button that says create mission. And then I'm going to go to Skywatch, type my name Dawn, and then hit Dawn's special mission. Oops, there we go. Then I'm going to select the drone, and I'm flying the LVM-10.
Exactly, LVM-10 is your drone.
Okay,
so
I'm flying the drone. Okay. So Alon, are you ready for me to deploy that drone?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm hitting dispatch. You tell me when when it works.
Yeah, in a minute we will get the mission.
So they're receiving the mission from my command, and they have to accept that mission.
Yeah, so in some cases, as I mentioned, there is a pilot in the middle, so he is going to approve to be in line of sight, and from this point, the drone is going to fly to the mission.
So did it work?
Let's see if he got the mission.
Am I in?
Okay, I will check with them. Just a minute.
Roger that.
Okay, let's try again. Click on the video, right click, and choose again the mission. Right click on the video of LVM-10.
Oh, right click on the video from Israel?
The video, right.
Okay.
LVM, right click on the video, create a mission.
Create mission.
Yeah. Choose the mission, Dawn special mission.
I think I'm in.
Yeah?
And the long click.
I think I'm there.
Okay, and click long click. Remember, a long click to approve the mission until it sends the mission. It should send you a message that the mission sent.
Okay.
So long click, and then we are getting the mission.
All right, it does say set POI position by clicking on the map.
Exactly, so do another click on the map near the location just to set the POI, point of interest.
Oh, okay, so I can click and then it's gonna point the drone where I want it to go?
Yeah, exactly. Not only the way that the place that you want to send the drone, but also where it's going to look at.
Okay,
here
I go. I just moved the eyeball.
Okay, let's see.
I think your drone has a low battery.
Okay, so.
And it looks like the other one in South Carolina is landing. But we're in the dark one in Israel, and I'm moving the camera right now. So give it a second, everybody. I think you're gonna see the screen move. I think you're gonna see it. Did it pivot?
Again.
And it's telling me that it's waiting for the response. Okay, there it goes. It moved. There it goes.
So we are
Yay! So there is a little bit of a delay. You know, when you're in the state, you know, on a stage in Las Vegas and you're flying a drone in Israel, there's a little bit of a lag, but it worked. I did it.
It's probably a problem with the software, not with the connectivity, unless Yoav will kill me. So let's leave it there. So the drone is flying to the location, the place that you sent him. You can play, after you will be at the location, you can play with the eye. And from this point, you will change where the drone looking at. So if you are dragging the eye to another location, it will switch to another point of interest. And that's it. You are flying the drone from Las Vegas. Actually, from this point, you are a certified drone pilot behind visual line of sight.
There you go. Okay, like I hope nobody from the FAA is here. I'm like flying in Israel, you know, I'm sure that's legit. So great to have you. This was amazing, Alon. Thank you for setting this all up and your team. I know Ido was really critical in all of this. And there he is in the background waving. Thank you, Ido. And obviously we had a couple practices. I'm really not that good on the fly, but thank you both so much. And I know we're gonna now pivot to Yoav from ELSITE, Yoav Amitai. But before we do, how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about Highlander? Because you guys are also working right now in the United States with the Las Vegas PD and a bunch of other law enforcement agencies right here in the United States as drone service provider. How do people learn more about Highlander?
Yeah, so actually we are focusing on public safety and facilities inspection as robotic area security. And if someone wants to contact us, you can just Google it, highlander.io or LinkedIn, and we are there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That was awesome. Woohoo!
Thank you for your time.
That was spectacular. All right, I think we're going to be able to get Yoav Amitai up. He is the CEO of ELSITE, so hopefully that's going to happen here shortly. We'll see. But while we're waiting for him, as I said, ELSITE is the connection that Highlander is employing. And so they're the ones that have that system, and they call it Halo. So fun fact, the term ELSITE in Hebrew means God vision, and their product, they call it the Halo. So that's what makes the magic happen, the ability for me to fly a drone from my computer in Las Vegas remotely in Israel. And what it does is actually, I'll call it sniffs out the connection, whether it's radio frequency, spectrum, LTE, 5G, it will autonomously select the correct one. So as a pilot, you don't have to think about that. The system just does that. Their software just does that for you. And it's called Halo, but I call it magical. So there he is, yay, all right, Yoav is here. Great to see you.
Hi, Don, nice to be here with you.
Yes, thanks for joining us. So by background, Yoav is a mechanical engineer, and he's the CEO of ELSITE. Like I said, I've had conversations with Benny and Scott from his team, and Scott's based here in the United States. But tell us a little bit more deeply, because I way oversimplify this sniffing out thing. How does Halo work?
No worries, this is how we like it. Basically being a critical part in the situational awareness path, like Alon mentioned. One of the most important parts is the connectivity, obviously. When we're talking about beyond visual line of sight operation, like you mentioned in before sessions, you want to make sure that you will be connected. So you'll be able to have all the situational awareness or all the video feed and other feeds that you can have from the field to get the right decision. This is what ELSITE is doing. Basically, we're doing our magic, I'll call it, not getting too much into the technical details, but we're enabling the industry, the drone industry, and not only the unmanned industry in general, to communicate in a robust way and very reliable and extremely secure way. So you will be able to enjoy whatever feeds you have coming from the field to the headquarters. So this is where ELSITE is focused. And we're having fun to play with great partners like Highlander and show you live events or live demonstration like you just saw.
So this crowd in particular, and I think people in general, right, they're always concerned about security. And when you think about beyond visual line of sight, that's probably a big concern. Can this be hacked? Can it be jammed? Can it be spoofed? What do you do to make sure this is cyber secure, this extremely remote connection in the case we just did today?
So that's a great question. Like you mentioned in your opening, in Israel, it happens to be that everyone had to stop in the military for a phase. And ELSITE roots are actually in the Homeland Security and Israeli Defense Forces, where all these communications started there. And if we can assure that those customers or those partners that we work with are assuring on our system, on our level of security that we are providing with the communication, because situational awareness is critical, but you want to make sure that no one else will be able to see it. So only the task forces and only the officers that need to see it, you want them to see it. You don't want anyone to hack the communication or manipulate it or anything like that. And we have several layers of security that include encryption and other layers that assures that the feed, whatever feed you want to transfer from anywhere to anywhere, will be extremely secured, working on public infrastructure. So you don't need to deploy special infrastructure using public infrastructure, and you can use it and be sure that nobody will be able to manipulate or hack into your data.
All right, and we alluded to the fact the military has been using the system for a while out there. We talked very briefly about drone delivery and the fact that you all have been involved in over 10,000 drone deliveries beyond visual line of sight, which I can't even foot stomp for people in this country how significant that is. And then we had the search and rescue scenario. Can you tell us just very briefly about some other use cases that your technology can enable?
Oh, absolutely. Not speaking only about drones, but other use cases that needs to have this, what we call connection confidence between the field and the headquarters or the control rooms. So the technology can be deployed not only for drones, but also for any vehicles. Think about police cars, fire departments, trucks, ambulances, etc., that needs to have this connection confidence between the whatever is in the field and the control center, making sure that they will be connected as long as they need the communication. This is what we're doing, and just like you mentioned, we have a couple of flavors of our product. Some of them are specifically related for the unmanned and drone industries, while others are very deep into not only homeland security, but other critical mission purposes that needs to have this connection confidence, and this is what we're doing in Elsight.
All right, well, excellent. If folks want to learn more about Elsight, how do they find you?
So obviously you can all come to elsight.com or search us on all the socials and everything. We are everywhere. Just look for us and we'll be more than happy to answer any question if you have any.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Yoav. That was amazing. Really appreciate you. Let's give him a hand.
Very nice to be with you.
All right, thank you. All right, everybody, so that's kind of the demo portion, if you will, of the morning. I believe we're going to transition now to maybe have an award ceremony. Is that right? And then the panel. So let's go ahead and get that started. I think I see Don coming out.
We're going to do a site visit now.
Is Don Upson coming out? No? Are we going right to the panel? Okay. All right. Once again, flexibility being the key to air power. If he's not ready, we're going to roll with the panel. Yes. There he is. Yay, the man of the hour.
What did you say? Flexibility is what?
The key to air power.
Well, we're going to be a little flexible. Everybody think this is cool? So I think we should continue the flow and bring the round table out so we don't disrupt your flow, okay?
Sounds awesome.
You're on a roll. Go ahead.
All right, let's roll with it then. All right, let's go, panel. We think you're all back there. Come on out. All right, as they're coming out, they're gonna file over here. So we've got Don Bershoff. We call him the Weather Don from True Weather Solutions. Great to see you, bud. Awesome.
Thank you.
And we've got Rob Menti, by the way, retired Colonel, United States Air Force. We've got Rob, you got to go over there. Go over there, sir. This is Rob Menti, Colonel, United States Army, retired, Northrop Grumman Armaments Division. Sir, nice to meet you. Austin Gould, yeah, from TSA. Great to have you, sir. And Cam Shell again, yay. All right, from Dragonfly. Come on out. Miss Hui Tran. So this is one of the first female directors of NASA's Ames Research Center, Senior Executive Service. What? Did I say it right?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, go. We're ready to go, so great to have you, Hui. All right, so everybody, great team we got here. All right, give me 1 second. I guess I'll sit on the end here. All right, so this panel is called Drone Challenges and Opportunities, or Opportunities and Challenges, depending on how you look at it, glass half full or half empty, but I'm thinking half full, even though generally speaking, I'm a half empty kind of gal. So let's talk first about, give me a second, because I can't see my cool little teleprompter there. We are going to start with introductions. I gave very brief ones, but I'd like each of you to maybe just give like 2 or so minutes of your background. So let's start with you, Hui.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this. This is my first time here at EDGE22. My name is Hui Tran, and I'm Director of Aeronautics at NASA Ames Research Center. My background actually is in mechanical engineering and in entry system. I do research and deployment of heat shield material for Mars entry. And one of the material that I invented called phenolic impregnated carbon ablator, which protect the first Earth entry of the spacecraft that coming back, and brought material from a comet, Ville 2. And since then, it has been used on all the Mars mission, including the latest one. And SpaceX also using it for its capsule, Dragon capsule, both crew and uncrew. Right now, I'm Director of Aeronautics, so my jurisdiction is in air traffic management, advanced aircraft design, and we have the largest wind tunnel in the world and the largest vertical motion simulator that we test all the handling quality of all aircraft designed for the military or commercial. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
So great to have you. And by the way, Hui was on my podcast, very last podcast of 2021, with Kevin the Drone Guy Morris. It was actually in the little clip that we started this day off with, and that broke records for last year, so on a roll there. She was also a keynote speaker at the Women in Drones event on Thursday evening. I Instagram live that's on my Instagram for playback. You have to hear her speech. It was absolutely like amazing. So I commend you all to go to P3 Tech's Instagram and check that out. So great to have you here. All right, Cam, we heard a little bit more about you, but I know I didn't do justice to your bio.
No, you did
so,
more than justice.
Go ahead.
No,
if you want to say anything more.
I CEO of Dragonfly. Been around for 20 plus years in the space with the company. We have a fantastic team. We're just really excited about hopefully becoming the trusted or a trusted name within the industry and working collaboratively with all the innovation that's happening. We're drone agnostic. Yeah, we're a manufacturer and we're innovative focused and we build a lot of IP, but we're really interested to work with people that are making progress in the industry and hopefully becoming a centralized integrator and solution provider. So we appreciate being here and thank you.
All right, and Austin Gould, the Assistant Administrator for Requirements and Capabilities Analysis Directorate of TSA.
That's me. Thank you very much for having me. So I've been at TSA for about 3.5 years now, but prior to that I was in the Coast Guard. I love these engagements because I learn things. I've learned so much already today sitting out in the audience.
Awesome.
When I was in the Coast Guard, I ran the research and development program for 4 years, and we were getting our feet wet with drones, literally.
No pun. Yeah.
No pun intended, right? We were getting our feet wet with unmanned aerial systems.
Yeah.
We flew a Fire Scout off a Coast Guard cutter, large, DoD, platform. We started using Scan Eagles off of our cutters, and now there's a program of record where we're actually using these things, and I was involved on the ground floor with doing that. It was really cool. And then as an operational commander in Miami, we flew some micro drones off of one of my cutters. First time it was ever done, trying to do over the horizon surveillance.
Awesome.
A lot going on down there from a law enforcement perspective. So I had a lot of experience in the using of unmanned aerial systems from my military career. Retired 3 years ago, came on to TSA, and now the concern is, how do these things fit into the airport environment? How do you prevent a Gatwick-like incident where they shut the airport down for several days over the holidays 3 years ago?
Right.
So we look at it now from more of a detect, track, identify, maybe a counter UAS perspective. And I'm very happy to talk about that as well. But thanks for being here. Already made some great connections, and I look forward to the discussion.
Well, perfect segue then to Colonel retired Rob Menti there when you're talking about counter drone, because that's exactly what he does. So go ahead, Rob, tell a little bit about your background.
Thank you. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying today. I know it's on a Saturday and people want to probably get on to other things here in beautiful Las Vegas, but on behalf of Northrop Grumman Armament Systems in Minneapolis, I'm honored to be here with this august panel. What we've heard here today is a wide variety of security and protection requirements because of how things are moving more autonomously, either with drones or the Internet of Things or in cybersecurity. And what we bring to the table, more on the military application, but also on the security side, is a full detection, track, identification, and defeat capability, both non-lethally and, when required, lethally with very precision ammunition. And I have a quick video that we'll show at the appropriate time that kind of highlights that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And once again, fun fact, Rob was on my podcast also in November, shared the spotlight, if you will, with Brigadier General retired Andy Armacost, former dean at the Air Force Academy that I worked with when I was there, and he's now the president at the University of North Dakota, doing amazing things with drones out there in North Dakota. So that was so fun, and that's where I got to meet Rob. And Don Bershoff, over to you.
Well, thanks, Dawn. And again, it's a pleasure to be here today, and I'm happy that the weatherman finally made it on the main stage.
Yay, weatherman. Like everybody says lawyer jokes, but he feels so downtrodden as the weather guy, you know?
Well, you know, it's just, it's what it is, right? We're only right 50% of the time, so you've got to learn how to put up your defenses, right? No, you know, Sun Tzu said that, you know your weather and victory is assured. Every one of these missions that you saw today, you know, are all going to one day be affected by weather. And there's chaos that's introduced in that. It's a fog and frictional war, and it impacts profits. It impacts, you know, takeoff and landing revenue. But in the military, it impacts mission effectiveness. And so when I was in the military, and you know, by the way, I learned that quote from National War College when I got my degree in National War College. The bottom line is that, you know, my whole life, all I've worried about is how do I help get bombs on target? How do I ensure the ISR assets are collecting good data, not just data, but good data, and they can get there to do it? How are we going to get the cargo moving? How are we going to ensure it's not jammed up in a logistics chain because there's a weather delay at one place like Dover Air Force Base? How are we going to get people to where they want to go on time? Right? So these are, you know, as a weather operator and somebody who has a lot of experience, I ran an Air Force base, I ran Manas Air Base in Central Asia. I was assigned to technology director at the National Weather Service. I'm looking at how do we fuse all these very complex system of human factors, because, you know, everybody doesn't think a weather guy's right, so we have to get beyond that, and all those biases that are in decision making today, and they're not really justified, honestly. We're about 80% right. And then how do we improve the communication and the translation of very complex information that everybody thinks they understand into simple insights so that we can make the right decision most of the time. So I'll just leave with this. 40% of all manned aviation missions that are canceled or delayed due to weather, they could have flown. And I'm going to leave you with that. That's the problem we're going to have to solve. But for drones and air taxis, it's going to be 40 to 60% of the time you delay a mission, or it could be flown. And that's all about uncertainty. It's uncertainty in the information. It's uncertainty in what people understand about it. There's not good decision systems that deal with this uncertainty, and that's what True Weather and my company is working on.
Yeah, well, I mentioned that we obviously did practice flying that, right? Because I wasn't going to just do that on the fly, again, no pun, from the stage. But I joked with those guys in Israel. I said, hey, make sure the weather's good in South Carolina, Miami, and Israel so we can do this. And we lucked out.
I'm disappointed you didn't check with me first, Dawn.
I'm sorry, I didn't. Well, you know, they needed to check with you. I'm just pushing buttons that they tell me to push, okay? So let's talk about, so thank you all. I mean, like, obviously prestigious panel, so let's give them a hand. Amazing group here. I want to talk about the opportunities. Some of you alluded to this already. Austin, you mentioned, you know, the micro drones for over-the-horizon surveillance, off the cutter for the Coast Guard. ISR is so huge now. I mean, Rob, as a former Army, you know, I imagine that, you know, folks on the boots on the ground, they don't want to go somewhere unless they know that they can see what's happening, and they're kind of relying on those drones up in the sky that the Air Force is flying for them most times, although every service now, Coast Guard included, and I'm assuming even the Space Force has some, are doing it. So let's, the Air Force has this group called AFWorks. They're working in what they call advanced air mobility, so it's not just small drones, we're talking now large passenger drones that are going to be electric vertical takeoff and landing, that are eventually going to be autonomous, so you don't have to have a bunch of people flying in to rescue someone off a battlefield. As an example, that's happening, that's in the works. The Army has their future tactical UAS program going, their vertical lift program going. The Navy has a UAS campaign. I mean, the list goes on, and it's all about network solutions. So it's not just about the drone, right? It's about the drone, the robot, how all of these things are connecting for perimeter security and other things. So I'm going to just throw it out to the panel. Can you give us a couple opportunities on the battlefield, other than surveillance that I think most of us already are aware of, and probably targeting, right? Are there other opportunities to use drones on the battlefild or on the sea?
Well, I've got a great use case.
Well, do it. Let's hear it.
And it dawned on me this morning.
Oh, dawned again. I love this is so many puns.
Am I in my game today or what? So when I was in the Coast Guard, I was stationed down in Miami, and I was the chief of staff down there for the whole Caribbean region. And the last year of my career is when Hurricane Irma devastated the Florida Keys. And then a couple of weeks after that, Hurricane Maria cut Puerto Rico in half. And so I was the incident commander in charge of the majority of the response from a Coast Guard perspective to that. Wow. So with respect to Irma, we had no idea what was going on in the Keys. Everybody left. We had to get supplies down there. There were small garrisons. DOD stayed down there. Some Coast Guard folks stayed down there. We had no idea what the condition of the overseas highway was. And within a day, my team brought in some CBP folks with a Predator drone, and we had that thing flying down there. It was the first look anybody got on the condition of the roads and whether or not we could get supplies down there.
Yep.
Critically important. And then from the Hurricane Maria perspective, the infrastructure in Puerto Rico was challenging on a good day, and you rope in a hurricane like that, it literally cut the island in half. And the Coast Guard had a big base in San Juan, obviously, and then we got an air station in Aguadilla, which is in the western part of Puerto Rico. It was so difficult to get supplies to the locals there. There was no power, no water, no ice, no nothing. And so we spent weeks, literally weeks, flying our Coast Guard helicopters out there with MREs, meals ready to eat, that we brought down from the United States. And we were kicking them out the door to people on the ground. We couldn't land the helicopter because if you land the helicopter, people were going to swarm you.
Oh, yeah.
We couldn't open the base because, I mean, it was a real security issue, down there. People were desperate. The idea of using drones to deliver those kind of supplies in a disaster response scenario, it's the only way to go, in my opinion, seriously. And it dawned on me literally today.
Wow.
I didn't even think about doing it. When I was in charge of the response, we used what we had. But had we had some medium lift capability, we were kicking cases of water out the door of the helicopters.
Wow.
They were exploding on the ground. I mean, it was just, such a challenge.
Yeah.
We really could have, it would have been a game changer to have, unmanned aerial systems down there to help us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we can just all just go home now, mission complete, because you just said it dawned on you that we could use these things. And that was kind of the goal of this whole morning, right? So I love that you said that. Anybody else, battlefield, that's more of a homeland security type, right, scenario, disaster response, battlefield. I mean, we can kind of open this up, and then we'll talk commercial. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing across the board, and I know we're only talking about drones here in one domain, but what we're seeing is a proliferation of more and more advanced, near-autonomous, almost intelligent, unmanned platforms in all domains, ground, air, on the sea surface as well as under the sea, to do a lot of different things, and also subterranean too for some of our UGV guys and gals. And it's not only, what we're saying is a blending of the technology and the capability. It isn't anymore civilian, commercial, or military. It's really utilizing the interconnectedness of the world that we have today on a continuum of capability that may be purely only surveillance or moving over to a more of a traditional military application. And additionally, what we're saying, all the services are moving out on this, and so is CBP and others, is layering where human beings reside. And using unmanned systems to provide you the information, decision-making, and in fact actions as required for strike or other things at range, at distance, so that the human element is protected, because things are getting so lethal and so dangerous on the battlefield. You don't want to put humans there, that you want to make those contacts and those information decisions with machines. And we saw that today with what you did in Israel. Or, you know, as he was just mentioning about what we want to do in Puerto Rico, you want to get unmanned assets there quickly and not put a human element at risk that comes with more cost, support, risks to the force, and all those other things.
Yeah,
so we're seeing a high teaming.
Absolutely. I mean, teaming. That is the word of the day. I mean, Navy puts that in their unmanned, aircraft campaign, unmanned campaign plan.
Yep.
And you're right. It was unmanned campaign plan, not aircraft. It's just all of it, because the idea is human-machine teaming. And we talked about the drones being the ultimate social distancer, but as you said, their ultimate standoff capacity, capability, if you will, for folks on the battlefield. Cam, I think you mentioned some things you're working with on the military side.
So one of the areas that we typically don't work with ordnance. The only ordnance we've ever done is an airbag explosive that shoots out a Kevlar net to capture another drone. But one of the areas that we're really excited about and proud to be working on is down combatant scenarios. So you get a down combatant and they need blood delivery, they need, I'll call it booster pens, they need immediate protection, they just need awareness around them, they need medical supplies, bandages, anything that, if a medic can't get to somebody or a team can't get to somebody that's down right away, you can get a drone there, and who cares if you lose a drone, who cares if you lose 10 drones, right? Just get them there continuously and protect that down combatant. So I'm really excited about the possibilities and some of the work that's happening there that we get to participate in with some of our customers who are military contractors.
No, that's a great capability, and NASA works quite frequently with the DoD in this space. What are you seeing on the research side?
So on the research side, we're looking at airspace integration. When you send multiple drones interacting with helicopter, with other access, how do you provide the commander with that situation awareness in one place? Essentially an iPad or a displays. So that's what we're doing with the DoD. We're working with, we're supporting them on putting an airspace prototype for mostly drone, but at the same time, we're going to bring in other access so that we can provide that common situation awareness when a commander in somewhere else, A or B, C, they all see the same, so that they can be able to launch that drone or fly the helicopter and know where you are, so that everybody's safe that way.
Absolutely. It's more than just the airspace. Cam, you said earlier, data is kind of king, if you will. And Don, having that weather information fused into an ops center like what Hui is talking about, not only to appreciate what's out there flying around, but
the weather.
What's happening with the weather, right?
Well, the big challenge we have where we fight wars is we don't have a lot of weather data. Because, and also the bad guys want to shut off our weather data. So, I'm not even talking about satellites. We can lose our satellites. Now, the thing that everyone has to understand is that satellites don't give us the microweather. You can't use satellites today or radar to pick up microweather. So when you're talking about getting something to somebody on a battlefield, if you're in a fog bank, or you have other challenges like Ventura winds, you may not get there, right? But we want to know before you launch that this is going to be a problem so we can get another asset out there, right? We don't want to try to get out there and waste time. So the whole idea about weather is using it as a force multiplier so that you reduce the uncertainty, you reduce the rework, and you also increase the ability to keep people from hitting each other in the airspace. Now with drones, remember there's no pilot on those flights. The most aviation, bad weather forecast, the way you get out of it is by having a pilot on board to get out of it, right? We don't have that. And, we could talk about all the challenges the Reaper and Predator have in weather, and I can give you a ton of stories about that. But now it's going to be on steroids. And now when you're talking about one-to-many trying to fly drones, that means that data has to be a lot better than it is today. And the only thing I'll add is that there are ways to improve data collection in combat areas for weather. And we're working on something with the Air Force. We have an AFWERX project building a weather scout that would be able to go out and deploy into an area and do extensive advanced weather scouting for icing at standoff distance, because icing is a huge problem for drones, and you can't see it any other way by detecting it either through a radiometer or going in it. Turbulence. These things are the invisible threats that we have to get, so we're working on these advanced capabilities to try to increase that. We also want to get sensors on drones themselves so that every drone's a sensor. So these are the things that we're talking about in DoD, and how do we bring this all together then to make it useful, because it's a lot of data, right?
No, absolutely, and I know you and I were talking last night about a little company out of Longmont, Colorado that was hatched around a kitchen table to a husband-wife engineer and their kids called Anemoment, and they created these little anemometers. Fun fact, that's like what measures weather, and they can stick them on drones.
They're
so
one
I know
of our
you're
partners.
working with them.
So we have 6 weather companies that have unique novel weather sensors that are not available mainstream. And we're integrating those into our ecosystem and our data weather integration solution. So Anemoment's one of them. And we actually are talking to NASA about getting those on small drones that are doing other missions to collect and test that data. So it's all coming together, but it's gonna take novel sensors, outside the box thinking, and a realization by the industry that this is gonna become a major problem if they don't get ahead of it.
Absolutely. So to pivot a little bit, so we're kind of talking more battlefield. We talked a little about disaster response, disaster management. Let's just talk more generally public safety, because as I think about use cases, that is such a significant use case in the United States. And we always talk, we're in this industry together. And so when we talk about some of the challenges, we're going to get to those. One of them is public acceptance. And the FAA does this incredible thing every year. It's called Drone Safety Awareness Week. It's in September. And they do a little theme every day. And one of the themes was public safety, public awareness. And when I first saw that combination, I scratched my head like, what is that all about? But think about this. When law enforcement is out there with a drone, that's where the public is going to see the drone, right? They're not going to see it maybe on a construction site. We're going to get to some of these commercial uses. They're going to see law enforcement out there, and that's going to affect their perception. And so many incredible, let's call them drones for good use cases in the public safety sector. If anybody is in this sector and you're not a member of Drone Responders, sign up for that. It's completely free. They have about 4,000 or 5,000 members and growing. Public safety agencies all across the United States and globally that are collecting information, sharing best practices, doing podcasts, having events. Just incredible. And they do a survey every year. And this particular year, I'll just give you some examples of what they're saying public safety is being used for. Besides surveillance and some of the things you saw. Search and rescue, not only in forest, but whitewater rescue. Whitewater rescue is significant. Crowd monitoring, crime scene investigations. So think about a horrific accident on a highway, having to close that highway down for how long while they're mapping out the pieces and parts. Fly a drone over there, cutting that time probably in third or less. Just one incredible application. We talked about disaster management, Border Patrol. You mentioned that, Cam, I think when we were talking. And what other opportunities from a public safety standpoint are you thinking? You alluded to it a little earlier, counter drone, right? So we know there's people that are compliant, they know the rules, they're doing the right thing, and those are the majority of the people. But then you have those careless people, and then you have clueless people, and you have criminal people. So that's why counter drone, I think, it's kind of a challenge at the same time as it's an opportunity, as so many of these things are. So why don't we start with you, Austin, and talk a little bit about what TSA is doing in this space for counter drone and why you have concerns.
So my 30-year Coast Guard career ended 3 years ago. Now I'm with TSA, so I'm kind of on the other side of the equation.
Right.
I still see enormous opportunities for drone activity.
Yep.
Incredible public safety benefits, law enforcement, you name it. But in the airport environment, it's a challenge. And I think you all remember that Gatwick Airport was closed a little more than 3 years ago.
Yep.
And it was a really big deal. And it was a wake-up call for TSA. It was a wake-up call for the whole industry.
And it was billions of dollars. I mean, we're not just talking inconvenience of canceled flights, which lately seems to be a regular thing for all of us, but billions of dollars every day.
130,000 people stranded over the holiday. Airport was shut down for 32 hours. The canceled flights were unbelievable, okay? And that's the kind of thing that could happen again, somewhere. So with the Gatwick incident as well, there's not even a really good image of the drone that was used. And we had a secondee, if you will, from London that was working with us at TSA for a while. He had the inside information of what happened there. There's still not even agreement about whether or not there was even a drone there. If you read some of the open source media, there are people that say it was all just kind of a fabrication.
Right.
But the impact was enormous either way.
Yep.
So at TSA, we're worried about what could happen in the airport environment here. And we're focused on detect, track, and identify right now. IFF, right? Identify friend or foe.
Yep.
Who are the legitimate operators? Who's the clueless operator? Who's the malicious operator?
Yes.
It's hard. And to detect and track drones in the airport environment, it's a real challenge because of all the ambient energy flying around, the communication systems and whatnot. So we're lashed up really tightly with the FAA on exploring technologies that we can use in the airport environment to detect, track, and identify drones. The FAA calls it developing objective standards for that equipment. We're working really hard with them. We've got a test bed set up in Miami right now where we can test, detect, track, and identify equipment in the airport environment to see what works and what doesn't. Because some of the vendors that are in this space, they'll tell you they can solve anything. But until you try it in the actual environment, it can be challenging.
Well, not only that, but I'm going to just go on a limb and say I don't know that there's a one-size-fits-all solution anyway, right? It's going to depend on what you're trying to do. Like in the airport environment, right? One airport is not the same as another. So, right, a small regional airport is going to be very different from LAX.
Absolutely.
With regards to the threat and the environment and the challenges there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're looking at all that stuff. And then we've got great support from government. We opened another test bed that we will be opening it this spring in LAX to do the same kind of work there.
Yep.
So we're going to advance our knowledge of how these systems work in the airport environment, how they can be used, and really enforce that public safety that we need in the airport environment.
Well, since we're on this topic, let's talk a little bit about your solution. Now, It's kind of built for the battlefield, but you're thinking, hey, there could be actually border and other uses for. Tell us about the MACE vehicle.
Yes, we have a wide range of capability inside Northrop Grumman. Our MACE capability is just one of many in the portfolio. We look at this very much, as others have stated here, in a detect, track, ID, and defeat process that has to be tailored to meet each individual use case, has to be fully networked, fully scalable, and fully modular behind an intelligent operating system that can interface with other things that already exist. To his point about an airport security challenge, there's already many, many other systems in place that have to be integrated, deconflicted, and managed to be able to provide situational awareness in order to reduce the decision-making uncertainty so that folks will take action. We bring a lot of effectors to the battle space, but also sensors and C2. And I think the other thing we all need to get more comfortable with, especially here in the homeland, is we're very, very fortunate that we have not had a serious incident to date. But many of our authorities are still restrictive to allow our first responders or others to make the appropriate reactions to nefarious actors. And that could be either from a jammer or from other types of effectors. And as things become more precise, we have to all work together to reduce uncertainty and gain trust that the systems that we bring to bear are precise enough and controllable enough to provide that low collateral damage solution. Because what we have found is the unmanned systems in all domains are getting smarter and less reliant on connections with the ground. Therefore, some types of non-kinetic effectors will not be effective, and you're going to have to go to a more direct capability. And so maybe when we show the video, we can kind of talk through that.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yes.
Can we roll the video from Northrop?
We shall see.
Maybe.
Maybe, maybe not.
It's like Oz is back there. Puppeteering.
The Oracle, make it run. Yes.
Here we go. All right, very cool. So that's the MACE vehicle, and that's an acronym, MACE.
It is for Mobile Acquisition Queuing and Effector. We do not have to go all the way to shooting the cannon. There is the front end of detect, track, and ID, which is really the 95% of the challenge that has to be done to maintain the situational awareness. But the point of that video was to show others that are not aware of how advanced fire control and other capabilities have become. That was one round that took down that drone. So we could actually provide a very low collateral damage solution in certain environments using that, or there's also, not portrayed here, but an onboard passive and active electronic capability that's inherent in the system as well. Because again, I think we have to get to a full range of response options for the incident commander, the airport security manager, or the commander on the battlefield. It's all very blended and very similar. And so we look forward to working with our partners from the government and with other industry partners to really get at how we make that full spectrum of engagement opportunities shareable, and to probably the most important thing is trust and certainty so that we do make the decisions in time to protect a facility. We say a lot of times in Minneapolis that what has changed with the advent of unmanned systems is that if you go out, everywhere in the world has a fence around it, right? Because you've always secured yourself against people walking in or dogs or controlling people coming in one domain. But now you have to be able to protect yourself from all domains, to include cyber, which is a hugely important part of that. And counter UAS protection or unmanned systems protection is part of that holistic layered defense capability that we've heard so much about while we're here.
That's awesome. And I want to flip over to the commercial side for a second.
Just one comment. So when I look at a video like that, all I look for is how weather's going to screw up that whole thing. That's what I see. No, and it's not a bad thing. It's because I'm trying to figure out how we mitigate it, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Just 3 use cases real quickly on public safety. Number one is if I was a foe and I had bad intent, I'd fly below the radar on the foggiest day I can, and I'd hit you then. Right? So how are we defending against that? How do we know that we have to change our TTPs because that's going to happen in the next 3 hours, right?
That's techniques, and procedures. Most of you probably know that.
Tactics, techniques, and procedures, right? So I ran Air Force Base, and I had to worry about that, right? Number two is when you look at using surveillance to do the border protection role, 30% of CBP's missions out of Grand Forks are delayed or canceled due to weather. So that means they have a 30% reduced mission effectiveness rate. I can tell you right now, we can get back 40% of that with low-hanging fruit. But how do we do that, right? Well, I know how to do it, but the system has to want to do it, right? The third thing is on public safety in urban areas or where police and fire are working. We should have a low-cost sensor on every drone box once they start flying BVLOS for weather. We need to know what the winds are doing around those buildings. They're not going to be representative of what the airport's reporting 10 miles away. We need to have that data so we can have better predictability about which drones are going to be operable in the next 3 hours, how you're going to use those and have a battle plan to go out and deploy them, and if they're all down, what's your plan to go out there and cover when you don't have drones? So this is the kind of things that we're trying to bring at True Weather to bring that thinking around so we can get ahead of these problems. You'll all learn about them, but you don't want to learn about them the hard way. You want to try to get ahead of it.
And Dawn, if I could just add one point.
Yeah, please.
I love the video too, and I want to talk to you more about that.
Yeah, of course, yes, sir.
But the stakeholders that we deal with from TSA, they see something like that and it terrifies them.
Yeah, it's like, they're blowing things up.
This is why we really focus on detect, track, and identify, because to your point, if you can do that, the mitigation becomes easy.
Yes.
But that mitigation part in the airport environment, we can't have something scary looking like that. Just because the stakeholders will absolutely reject it.
Can we paint it pink?
We're going to have to do something. It's going to be a hard problem.
Put a smiley face on it.
We'd love to talk to you about that.
Yeah, thank you.
No, it's perception is big, right? I mean, we'll get back to this, but it's just so hard to talk about opportunities without also like that kind of flip side of the coin. There's always a challenge on the other side. And I think as we're talking, it's so hard just to say, oh, we're just going to talk about opportunities now and we'll talk about challenges later, because you can't talk about one without the other. And Don, you brought up, weather, obviously, that's your area of expertise. And let's talk for a minute about air traffic management, or what we're calling unmanned traffic, or UAS traffic management. By the way, I would be remiss not to mention, the terminology in this space is kind of in flux and being reviewed from a diversity standpoint. So it's like, what do we call things now? Is it uncrewed? Is it just call it drone? I kind of go where what I'm used to is with unmanned, and that's still in all the Federal Register as well. But the unmanned or UAS traffic management, we're talking low-level airspace. And just real quick, just so everybody appreciates this, this is not going to be controlled by your normal air traffic control. That is not the vision, right? So NASA and the FAA together collaborated on a concept of operations. You're on 2.0, I believe, version. So if you could explain a little bit about what we expect to see, and even maybe weave in some of the challenges, because we're not there yet.
We're not quite there yet. So in 2015, we began to work with the FAA on UTM, UAS Air Traffic Management. We coined the word UTM, and now actually it's been harmonized globally to Europe and other countries. So one of the things that when we designed the architecture is that we know that when there are millions of these drones flying around under 400 feet, the air traffic control not going to want to deal with them. So our beginning was to what we call manage by exception. So if you tell me what you're going to do and you do what you're going to do, we don't worry about it. And we're also creating what we call third-party services. And third-party services include also weather, data exchange, networking, communication, so that we can create. So NASA's job is doing research and development of prototyping and architecturing, and then let the industry take it over. That's how we're creating jobs. So we create this thing called third-party services so that other companies can provide services for whoever that want to operate a drone within wherever they want. But just imagine millions of these drones flying around. You have to have the rule of the world. And so we work with the FAA on that kind of requirement, working with ASTM standard on the standard of COM standard, networking standard, how do you exchange the data, and typically to use API. That's what we use. We're taking what we learned from the internet to enable this kind of scalable system for the future. So working with the FAA and other industry to do that, and I think that we're still not quite there yet, but we are making progress. Very good progress, actually. I think the relationship between NASA and FAA have never been stronger, especially in UTM. And we're also working with JAXA. One of the things that we did was talking about public safety. We went over there with our UTM prototype and participating in the DNET, which is once a year they practicing tsunami kind of incident, and how do they going to coordinate all of the activity and respond. So I think coordination between agency, emergency response, people, what kind of data you're going to exchange, do we have the same understanding of the situation, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about public safety, is there going to be a priority response? Like on the road, you see an ambulance or you see a police car with lights on, you pull over, how does that work in the sky, right? And I know that's one of the big things you're looking at as well. When we think about the challenges, I always kind of bucket them in three. People think about privacy, they think about security, and they think about safety, I think in general, and that's clearly a safety issue. I want to pivot for a second and talk about privacy because, I think obviously all three of those topics are very important, I think, to the general public, but just talking to folks that aren't, in our own ecosystem, that aren't involved in drones, when they think of drones, they think of privacy, I believe. Who's going to be spying on me? What are they looking at? What are they collecting? And Cam, this morning we heard a lot of data that could be collected with drones, and we even heard Promo Drone with that cool thing that could, collect like, okay, who's in the audience, and are they, I think with your technology, are these people related, or what's their blood type? I mean, so how do we protect privacy? How do we not stymie the use of this technology for good, which all of these use cases are good. All of the things you talked about, Cam, and of course what Jamar talked about, and Tony, and Elsight, and Highlander. How do we quell fears that privacy is going to be violated? What do we need to do to convince people that this will be used in a proper way?
Well, so a couple of things, if you don't mind. So first of all, I think society getting comfortable with drones is inevitable. And the reason I say that is because the work that we are doing, say with DRL or Steve Wozniak's education, or we just recently announced a very big contract with a fantastic company called DDL, which we're building a companion drone for them. So it's an AI-based education drone. It's a hobby drone. They have 500,000, or excuse me, they have 50,000. They have 500,000 users right now that are building this companion drone, which is an air flight type drone for school-age kids. It's a hobby. So they're just going to get comfortable. And you think that's a long ways out. That's only, these are like grade 8 kids. So these are decision makers inside of 10 years. So I think it's inevitable. But that said, probably the number one issue that we deal with in terms of a larger commercial rollout with the type of technology that you allowed us to display here today is privacy. So we have other sheriff's departments that are looking at this and they're going like, whoa, wait a minute. I got to get reelected here. And if people are starting to think that I'm collecting medical data on my drones that are up in the air, I'm not going to get reelected. Like it's kind of like that tangible. And so, but what we've discovered is that there is a very good privacy construct that's already in place. You can't go out and collect data without consent. It's just like, and if you are, then there's going to be a problem. So there has to be consent around that type of data, unless of course it's an emergency situation and there's implied consent. And again, all of those rules have been worked out. So I think it's a lot of awareness, and it's a lot of just kind of taking one or two steps and seeing, that these drones do save lives, or that they do provide efficiency, or that, they are an integral part of our society. But I don't think we need a big overhaul. I don't think we need a big oh my gosh, this changes everything. I think we've addressed all these issues before, just in different ways.
No, I totally agree. I mean, from the legal standpoint, there's so much case law, especially for law enforcement on the Fourth Amendment constitutional side. I think people, when they see a new technology, they think, do we need something different? And between 2013 and 2015, we had this explosion of state laws, that kind of carved out jurisprudence. And when you needed a warrant, or that you basically forbade law enforcement from using a drone to collect information or evidence, with a drone, unless they, had a warrant. Okay, that's all right. Okay, we knew that, but then they with a warrant, or with this or with that, but then they left some other things off the table in these laws, and it was just like, why are we doing this just because it's a drone? I think in the legal system, we're going to see some challenges that's going to shape this. And because even though we think it's cut and dry, sometimes it's not. There's that case in Michigan where the township, it was a zoning case, the township hired a drone pilot to basically take some imagery of these folks that essentially had a junkyard in their backyard. And then they fined them. It's called Maxon versus Lakewood Township. And, then they used it, of course, to fine these people. Well, it made its way into the court system and kind of blew it up and said, hey, the township needed a warrant to do that. Now, for me, that's a no-brainer, but there are a lot of people thinking, oh, why would they need a warrant? That's not a big deal. So there's definitely camps on both sides of this, and I think it's going to get interesting. I don't know that that's been appealed, but privacy will continue to be an issue, and I think, like you said, Cam, consent, notices, right? I'm pretty sure when you walked in this building, there's probably some sign we all just didn't bother to read that said, you know, they have surveillance cameras, because they're everywhere already. You know, the fact that it happens to be on a drone really doesn't make it that different, to be honest with you.
It's the sensor, it's not the platform.
That's it. It's the sensor, it's not the platform, and I think people tend to forget that.
However, the platform is intimidating.
It is,
right?
well,
It's
you know,
visual,
look,
it's
they
in your
look like
face, it's
spiders.
loud,
Why can't we
you know,
make them look prettier? I mean, you know, it makes it look like creepy and scary. So everybody out there that's designing these, think about how to make them look, you know, less threatening. I don't know, like a little happy, like blobby looking bubble thing. So, all right, let's also talk about security more. So we hit the counter drone stuff a little bit. Cybersecurity. Throwing it out there. Anyone? Weather data. Can people mess with weather data? If you've got sensors all over the place deployed like you want to, can I mess with that and then like ruin your operation?
That would be the best indirect asymmetric approach to screwing up the whole drone industry, is just by going in and messing up the weather data, especially if you're doing machine to machine and nobody's overseeing it. And so what we've done at True Weather is we're working with a company called Resilient. And we actually have several NASA contracts right now, SBIRs, where we're testing data from sensors. We're going to be putting them in Hampton, Virginia. We're going to be tracking the reliability and the data quality, and we'll have systems in place to know if it's been messed with. And then there's also a blockchain component to all of this, so we can have a chain of custody going back, so we can always figure out where we may have had a breach. You know, as a former science and technology director at the Weather Service and a military guy, security is my top priority. Because not only from protecting my business, but also for knowing how weather could spoof and really mess up an operation. So we're all over that. And that's why it's going to be important for some regulations to come out, which I'm also on the ASTM F38 weather group, and I'm running the weather regulations for the whole US for UAS weather. And I have about 50 folks on there, and we're looking at what are those requirements going to be for weather supplemental data service suppliers to make sure that when a UTM or a PSU is getting our data and you're using it, we know it's secure. And we also want to have the metadata associated with it also. So, you know, this is a huge deal because I could throw this whole country in chaos in 10 minutes. Because people can't pay attention to everything that's going on. It's all automated. If we don't have checks and balances in there, it's fake news.
Yeah, so as a research organization, we look a little bit farther out, and you know, company like yours is great that you're doing that. We're looking at blockchain as a way to secure data. We call secure airspace. We have a research activity under one of our projects called secure airspace, looking at different technology. Another technology that we actually did propose and did the research and actually demonstrated, and we continue to do this, is quantum technology.
Quantum?
We're looking at quantum technology. How can we use quantum to secure the airspace and the communication and the network? It's a little bit above my head because I'm not really a computer scientist, but we have a very strong group of people at Ames that are working on that right now. We do have some work with the IRBA for that, and we're hoping that we'll be able to tap into that kind of technology for the future. And hopefully could then transfer that technology to company outside.
That's awesome. I mean, we hit safety. I mean, there's so much to talk about from a safety standpoint, from all of these perspectives, security, privacy. You know, I think one thing that continues to evolve is the regulatory side. I mean, you mentioned ASTM and these weather standards just now being made, right? So we don't have a beyond the visual line of sight rule yet for the FAA at this time. As kind of I alluded to earlier, Part 107 pilots are relegated to having the drone within their visual line of sight. Now, can they fly BVLOS? Yes, they have to get an exemption or a waiver. The FAA is in the process of having a BVLOS advisory rulemaking committee. Those recommendations, that's a large group of industry representatives that are getting together and giving recommendations to the FAA. Those recommendations are supposed to be sent to them, I believe, it was actually supposed to be last year at the end of the year, and I thought they would be public, which they're not going to be. The FAA is going to get them and then eventually do some rulemaking on that. It was a big year, though, last year. for rules. So we had a handful of things come out, a thing called remote identification to help with this detect aspect, where the drones are supposed to have this ability to broadcast out their serial number, their location, their velocity, all kinds of information, even the ground control station in the case of a standard remote ID. I'm not going to get into all the details, but that was a big one. Operations over people at night, that rule came out. So much happening right there with the regulatory side, but a long way to go. So we are kind of running low. I'm just checking. We've got maybe about 10 minutes left. And what I would love to do, since there's 5 of you, is I'm doing public math now. Was I just give you?
It works.
2 minutes.
There's a denominator that works.
Giving you each 2 minutes to maybe, what you have on your mind, either from an opportunity, a challenge standpoint, as we kind of close out this morning's session. So Hui, I'll start with you.
So as a research organization, challenge is always opportunity to do more research. So that's how we view that. I think there's a huge opportunity for this industry. For us is more of, how do we going to enable this new market, right? This market, once it take off, just like the internet and the cell phone industry, it's going to change a lot of people's life, especially in the area where they don't have place, airport or infrastructure support. So I think that's a very exciting, and we're proving that a little bit. Second thing that I think the opportunity to use this kind of technology, not only in a small drone, but on a larger, what I call it is unpiloted or remote supervised medium-sized drone for wildfire fighting. We're in the West Coast, California. We have wildfire almost all the time. We're working with CAL FIRE and U.S. Forest Services to help them, again, create this situation awareness for the people involved in operating drone, the drop, the water tank, the area supervisor, the hot shot. So that's where I think that we can, that's the opportunity. The most exciting thing that we start thinking about and talk to that industry and that sector of agency is that 24/7 firefighting. Right now, they can only do between 4 to 6 hours. And if the drone fly, they can't fly. The suppression people can't fly. So if we can get them together, be able to fly together, and also be able to do it at night, that's when the weather is at best for firefighting. Weather data. I love your idea because that's what we're thinking too. Make every drone, make every of those single vehicle to be the data channel, the weather channel. So that's what I see the opportunity for drone and larger drone. So, and we continue to work on that.
No, I think that's great. I mean, unfortunately, last year, not only was the United States on fire, the world was literally on fire.
Yes.
And like I said, 2013, I was involved in that California Rim wildfire, and it was the firefighters out front of the cameras saying, this changed our battle rhythm completely to 24/7 operations, and that was in 2013. And so we've come a long way with the technology, and I'm so excited that NASA is working on this problem because it needs to be solved. So thank you so much for what you're doing. Cam, over to you.
Yeah, thanks again for the incredible opportunity to be here today and this conference. It really has dawned and spawned an incredible amount of discussion. And I really think it's still all about trust. And so, it's a combination of the incredible work that the regulators are doing in order to facilitate this industry happening. And I know there's generally been a lot of complaints around, oh, it's not fast enough, it's not fast enough. It's fast enough, right? Public acceptance wouldn't be there yet anyway. So, we can all just take a breath. And I think those two things need to work in parallel. And as we do individual use cases where we've got drones that have saved lives, or we've got, situations where people's lives have been made easier in a hurricane scenario, or whatever the case, as those things, because they are happening, that public acceptance will happen, and as the generation gets a little bit older, this will come to bear. I liken it a little bit back to, the beginning of the internet, when it's like, well, why do you need a web page? You've kind of like, that's not really a big deal. Like, why do you need a drone? Like, that's not about the drone, and it's not about the web page. It's about the network and the infrastructure and the implication and the data and the delivery and everything that happens because of the drone or because of the web page. And I think that's really the beginning of where we're at. This might take twice as long as what we thought. It will for sure be 10 times bigger than we ever imagined.
Awesome. I love that. That's a tweetable quote. Did somebody write that down? Yeah. All right, go ahead, please.
Dawn, I'm sorry about my voice.
That's okay. I'm sorry you don't have
You admonished me. Come back to me.
Okay, okay. Can we get a water?
You admonished me to end on a high note.
Oh,
okay?
yes.
So I talked enough about the challenges of counter-drone, activity in the airport environment, but I'll give you a couple of use cases that I didn't mention before. From a TSA perspective, our law enforcement arm, the Federal Air Marshals, they perform joint vulnerability assessments on all airports, and they're assessing where a nefarious actor can maybe launch a drone from to cause a disruption. Our ability to use drones to do those joint vulnerability assessments is critical. So we're gonna want to get into the user community at some point in the not too distant future. And then back to my Coast Guard time, when I was stationed down in Miami. Bimini was about 50 miles away from Miami, and Freeport is about 80 miles away from West Palm Beach. 2 to 3 hour boat ride in a nice boat. In a 3-year period, we caught non-citizens coming over trying to sneak into the United States from 39 different countries. Countries in Europe, countries in Asia, all over the place. Special interest countries. The boats that they use, they take all the metal off them. They go extremely low profile.
Right.
You can't detect them on radar. They could go right by you on the ship and you wouldn't even notice them. So the ability to detect that kind of activity in the maritime environment, I see a real role for drones in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. We did not even scratch the surface here, by the way. I mean, when we're thinking about oil and gas and methane emission detection, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Check out my website. I've almost written about every one of these topics if you care to read them, but go ahead, Rob.
I guess I would just leave it with, it's all about layered defense capability in all these scenarios that we're talking about, and it is not just against a drone, but it's really hardening your facility or your business or your data or whatever that is because of all these different threats that we're seeing in all these different domains. So it really comes down to really about the network and being interconnected enough to maintain situational awareness in a trusted environment and then bring the right effects that you need to do to deal with that and have the authorities and policies in place that enable that because we trust the things that we have. And I think right now we still have a lot of human perception of trust problems that we're going to have to deal with as this ecosystem continues to evolve at a very, very high rate of change.
Absolutely, and we didn't even get to the authorities for counter-drone and the fact that only a handful of federal agencies have the authority to mitigate that threat. Local law enforcement technically does not. So that's just a whole nother thing that could be a whole nother hour, which we don't have time for. Don, you've got 2.
So we need to understand that the current weather system that's been built is a 1990s weather model, even though it's 2021. It's just sluggishness. It's hard for the government to take science and technology that's going on in the labs and universities and get it out fast enough and accelerate progress. But it's there, and we got to do it. And you guys have to demand it, because if you don't, it's going to cost you money. It's going to cost you mission effectiveness. So one of the things I do is I work closely with NASA, because I love NASA, because I think they're really very, very forward-leaning on how to get that science and technology out. And they're using small businesses like us to make it happen. We don't need 10-year university studies or 5-year studies in labs. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and we're going to unleash that as quickly as we can to get that benefit out. That's number one. So don't be satisfied with what you have. Ask how we can do better. I think that the focus has to be on operations. Sometimes we do science for science sake. We don't need to have a gridded sensor array every 2 miles across the whole country. We need to have the sensors where we need them. They need to be appropriately priced for the mission need, and we don't necessarily have to have a climate record from those sensors. We need to have a focus on ops. So science serves the ops, not ops serves the science. These are major things. And the last thing is, we need to get more leadership on these ARCs that understand this weather juxtaposition problem. There was no weather person on that ARC. that understands operations. And I know decisions were made there that were totally unaware of some of the challenges that they hadn't considered. And that's something we need to get in because, you know, you've heard it today. I can mess up your whole day by spoofing the weather data. I know how to, you know, we know we can close some of these gaps. We know we can do a better job at detecting bad guys. We know all this. We need to get that in our mindset and not just think weather's the price of doing business or this is the best they can do because we're only 50% right all the time. Get that out of your head. It's a bad attitude, all right? And that's what I have to say.
All right, very good. Well, you know, the Advanced Aerial Advisory, or AA, what are they calling it now? It was the DAC, the Drone Advisory Committee. It's now the Advanced Air Mobility Advisory Committee. Those applications are due Monday, dude, so you need to apply.
Yeah, I know, but they still haven't let the weather guy at the adult table yet.
Well,
so thank you for bringing me to the adult table today.
Well, yes, it was great to have you at the adult table and all of these amazing experts. Let's give them a hand. All right, thank you very much. Well, I think we are +1 over our time, so that's it. All of these folks will be here, so this is the end of our session. I hope you all did learn things. I hope things did dawn on you, and we will be around, so please hit us up. Please ask us questions. Check out the kiosk, and if anybody wants a cool pic with the drone, let us know. That's it. Thank you so much.
Nice job, man. You did.
Don, as you leave, I just want you to know we had a spike in our internet, on our online viewership. And in terms of, we have several texts. I want to read one of them.
Wait. Listen up, guys.
I want to read one of the texts. We had a spike in our online audience as soon as this thing started. We have, here's the one of several texts. Don, just here to tell you that this drone program, the drone program this morning is so damn cool. Great session, man. Yemi Oshanaya is USCIS Homeland Security.
Awesome, woohoo!
Thank you, and thank you, and it's just a great session. So
thank you so much for having us. It was awesome. Thank you.
Now, I'll tell you as we're going to bring out. Stay with us because we've got 3 excellent programs to conclude before lunch. But when you look at this program, the way things come together for this agenda is really driven by our members. And we can go like, whether it's law enforcement and how that's evolved into something we do in the organization or at this session. Started with Mike Pullen at CGI, but we get input from our members and it builds into pieces of a puzzle that become an agenda. And what happened with the drone session is Craig Abott we had a meeting in his office with Mike McCaleb and his marketing people who are here. And I remember he said, do you have any interest? Would drones be of any interest? And we talked through it. He said, we have someone we work with, Don Zoldai, and she and I met, and literally dozens of calls later between our team and her and the people in Israel and San Diego, all these pieces were together that normally we put together, but it became so complex. There were frustrations, I know, on her end once in a while, on ours once in a while. But we finally said, it's your 2 hours, you put the pieces of the puzzle together, and she did a fantastic job, so thank you. And all of the capabilities that you saw from the companies, Elsight, Highlander, Dragonfly, Promo Drone, what am I missing? Promo Drone, there are others, but all of those are going to be capabilities. Carasoft is developing a drone business within the family of businesses the capabilities that Carasoft produce. So keep that in mind, whether you're systems integrators or government customers. I'd like my colleagues to join us out now. We're going to do, before we go into the program, Barry, Mike, Jen, Ned, are we there? We are. I'm going to begin, and then Barry is, okay, I thought they were joining me out here. You guys coming out? We have 3, Maria received the government award and very deservedly so yesterday. We have 3 additional ones that we want to present today. And I'm going to begin. Many of our members, 6 years ago, I met Gilbert Réveillon, and he has become a friend. He is our chair, the GBF co-chair in Europe. He is the reason that we go to the French embassy, has become in the government technology sector one of the most prestigious events we have every year. He adds so much to our agenda, our program, our planning. He travels over here. He enables programs that we have over there, and he has been a tremendous addition to our organization and a tremendous contributor. There's an organization that he's part of. There are about 4,000 CCEs that are senior business executives that are sanctioned by the President of France to promote business between France and other countries. There are 10 that receive an award every year, and Gary Shapiro and I were on hand. He's one of the 10 that got the award and is president of the Information Technology and Technology Committee within that organization. He's contributed so much to the perception and the reality that the Government Business Executive Forum, our vision, to reach out and connect with other, not just jurisdictions in the United States, but overseas. So we want to recognize you, Gilbert, and thank you for everything you've done.
Please go forward.
Say right there, is he going to come in? Join us up here.
Would you like to say a few words?
And he didn't know this was going to happen, did you?
Not really. Thank you for the surprise. I'm touched, sorry. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here, guys. And it's just a thrilling experience to join, to contribute, and to bring friends and organize together tremendous events. So
Never seen you with a shortage of words. It's good.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. Looking forward to go even further.
Our next awardee, Jaspal Sagoo. Dr. Sagoo, please come forward. Please. Jaspal. Jaspal, those of you that don't know, Jaspal was the Chief Technology Officer at the HHS, CDC. And has spent over almost 32 years there. Prior to that, he was with British Telecom, if my memory serves me correctly. And he's also on staff with me at Georgia State University as an executive in resident. He's probably one of the leaders in our nation on understanding technology and healthcare, and then being able to bridge that gap down to the state and local level. And you've done an outstanding job, and we wanted to recognize you, here at the conference.
Well, thank you so.
It should automatically be on.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here every year. The staff here, they absolutely do a wonderful job every year, and I'm always surprised at the caliber of the people and the whole agenda. And good to be here, and I'm glad so many people are still here on a Saturday. But thank you so much. It's been an honor to work in public health and federal service for over 30 years, and with mixed feelings that I've just retired. So, and looking forward to the next chapter. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, but certainly not least, I want to welcome Ian Liddell Granger would say something. We all know Ian, and let me tell you, we are out in the United States, France, and Britain because of these two are always part of this program here and also throughout the year. But even though we're allies, once in a while there's a little friendly rivalry between countries, so they don't even know this, but one of the things we do when we build a video, it'll say the United States, and then it'll be France and Britain, and then the next thing it'll be United States, Britain, and France, and we do everything exactly equally. But Ian has been with us for more than almost 12, 14 years, and the only GBF trip that we've done overseas, and I can tell you if Teresa Carlson were here, she used the trip that we did to London to start her business not only in UK but in Europe overall, and she had 3 employees when we went to London, and when she went to Splunk, I think there were 4,000 or 5,000. But Ian, you have been part of this. You saw what people think of you the other morning when we with 16 to 18 people we expected at the breakfast, and we had 50 or 60. But thank you for everything you've done to help this organization and things and relations between our business community, our country, and yours. Thank you.
Don, thank you very much. Just make sure the friendly rivalry concerned, I've just told our French colleagues here, our flag is taller than the French flag. So I just put it in the top. So we're getting outside in a few minutes, so if you want to sell tickets at the boxing match. Listen, thank you very much, Don. It's been a privilege. I was just talking to somebody outside just now when I was going to the loo. This EDGE, well, as it was CS Government, now EDGE, it's getting better and better and better. And the first time you did it, it was I don't think you were sure how it's going. Now look at it. What we've heard over the last 2 days has been phenomenal. We've discussed very openly some of the challenges that face all our countries, and you are absolutely right that we've got so much more to talk about. We really are. I cannot thank you enough. Mary Shea, obviously Sarah, the whole team that you've got over here. What a team you've got, and thank you so much. And I think we've all enjoyed it. And last night with Skunk and the guys, I think there's a few people have had sore heads this morning, but including myself. So it's been great, but thank you so much. I mean, oh, crikey.
There you go.
All right.
We'd like to get a picture.
Oh, God, it weighs a ton.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Gilbert. Actually, that one's Gilbert's there.
We're going to get pictures. We're going to get pictures.
Pictures. Get in here, Mike.
It's so easy. You can just obscure it.
All right, right here, you guys, right here. Fantastic. Couple more.
All right.
Thank you. Congratulations. Awesome. You did not, did you?
Congratulations.
Thanks for being here this morning.
Congratulations, man.
Always.
Congratulations.
Is we have our state and local government cyber panel is very excited about what they're going to do, and I've listened to them on the phone, and they have as much energy as the drone panel that we just heard. Now the only issue is we have a little issue with our videos repeating every sentence, and so I'm going to introduce all four of them. Number one is Michael T. Dent, Chief Information Security Officer, Fairfax County, consistently recognized as one of the top 1, 2, or 3 jurisdictions of local government in terms of technology management in the United States. We also have Jeremy Wilson, the Deputy CIO for the state of Texas, and we're delighted that he could be here with us. Kathy Miley has been a CISO, has worked in cybersecurity forever, and Mike Dent recommended her, and he recommends few people, but he's worked with her over the years, and thank you for being here, Kathy. And finally, Mike Haneke is the Chief Security Officer, not for New Brunswick, Delaware, but for Newcastle, Delaware. And so please welcome this roundtable, and you're going to like what they have to say.
Thank you, Don.
Got them all right, didn't I?
Welcome, folks. Appreciate it's a little bit more than we had last year. Stayed. Glad you all stayed here for me. Before I get into this, I want to make sure I reiterate to you all to please go back to your localities and talk to your officials, your elected officials, and your leaderships. Find out what they're doing with cyber, how they're funding it. Help your CISOs, help your CIOs build their programs. It's critical for your data that you're giving to those local governments. So I really ask that you go back and find out what they're doing, because that in turn helps us get the funding we need, because those leaders listen to you. Thank you. But anyway, I'm going to turn to the panel that we have here and let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, my name is Jeremy Wilson, first time attendee at the conference. So first of all, I just want to say thanks to Don and Mary Shea and everyone for putting on a wonderful event. And had never seen the American Vinyl All-Star Band, so maybe we could give them a quick round of applause for their awesome concert last night. Excited to be here. Thanks, Mike, for having me.
So hi, I'm Kathy Miley. I am the Vice President of America for the Carbon Black Unit at VMware. This is also my first time being at the event. It's an honor to be here on the panel, and thank you very much. I've known Mike for a number of years. We worked together on a number of CISO peer-to-peer advisory councils and have tackled a lot of challenges over the past couple of years with the new advent of this remote working environment in the COVID era, and I'm happy to be here and talk about all kinds of fun stuff that we've got today.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good morning. Mike Haneke, Newcastle County, Delaware. I started my career 7 years ago at the state, retired from the state, and transitioned to the county government where I met Mike. And we share a lot of the same views of the importance of connections between the state, federal partners, and happy to be here. This is a wonderful event and excited for our conversation.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Mike. Thanks, everybody. So we really I don't want to go into some kind of, measured agenda that we would have or speak to, because we've had great conversations the last few days about cyber and what we're seeing and what's going on in the state and local world. It's funny because a lot of people don't understand that, like you said yesterday, Mike, to me, was the rubber hits the road with us in state and local when it comes to cybersecurity. So all this great technology we're hearing everyone talk about, we have to secure the data that technology creates. And it becomes harder and harder when everyone sees the flashing lights, they see all the gadgets, your businesses in your counties or in your state, they want to go out and buy it. But again, security always seems to be at the back end of that. They don't think about it, so then security is not funded. Then we have to do all of the things we have to do to fight for that. Jeremy, the state of Texas, you guys are, as big as you are. You guys kind of are unique, what you all do for the counties there. Can you tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing, what you've had happen, things, how have you handled cyber issues? How do you handle budget, getting budget?
Yeah, I mean, those are some good points. So it does come down to funding. And so traditionally, my agency, the agency I work for, is the Department of Information Resources. And I was telling you how historically, we serve state government, meaning state agencies. We have the governor's office, DPS, all the big state agencies on our network. And so, over years, we've built a security operations center. We have visibility, sophisticated tools, multiple teams watching traffic. But to your point, how do we extend and provide those security services to local governments is a big challenge. I can say that I think our elected officials are on board, and we've been receiving some funding, particularly over the last session, that's really going to help with that. I'm personally working on a regional security operations center pilot program, piloting that with a Texas university. And then there's some other things we've done, whether it's from a threat intelligence sharing space or incident response services, or just putting people in touch in communities where they can talk to each other and face challenges, things that have gone well. Here's some challenges we're facing. So trying to kind of pull all that together is a tough mission. I wouldn't say we're done, but we're making some really good strides.
We're never done.
Right? That's the security life.
As long as they keep coming out with this stuff, we're never done. I mean, now, talking yesterday when we were having our brief little talk, you were telling me about how you guys, to me, it's like time to market for security tools. How long, the strategies you're working right now, how long or what year strategy are you on right now to implement your stuff?
That's a good point, because there's always current operations and future operations. And so some of the things that got funded over the last couple legislative sessions were ideas that we had, working with our executives and our customers back in 2014, in 2017, in 2019. Our elected officials meet biannually, so we always have to have kind of a list of what's next in cyber, so we're not flat-footed, knowing that not every single initiative is going to get funded. So kind of to your point, we have to be very diligent about picking, where we put the funds, what program and tools we invest those funds in, because it all has to be transparent. It's all, at the end of the day, to protect the citizens, of the state of Texas.
Yeah, for me, it's the funding piece, and I've been very fortunate in the county, Fairfax, is, having leadership, the buy-in on leadership is critical. Mike, how do you approach your leadership when it comes to one, I think you also are in a rare role, right? With finance, you have control.
Yeah, the procurement side.
Procurement side.
Very fortunate. I have IT and procurement, so we can figure out how to get it. So I'm fortunate. My leadership understands the value of the technology and the security, and we use the briefings with our county council. But what's important is we had to actually change the FOIA laws years ago at the state level to exempt cybersecurity information from the Freedom of Information Act. And because of that, we're able to go into an executive session, have a real open discussion about where we are, what's the risk, and what do we need to solve the problem. And that is, with the public meeting agendas, that's how we get around. That's how I get our elected officials made aware. And our leadership team is on board. My executive has a software engineering degree background, so he's actually a very challenging person to work for because he's asking difficult questions.
Nice.
And that is, I'm very fortunate there. But the funding is that constant communication between leadership, the CFO, and the council keeps us aware of where our needs are. Because if I don't communicate clearly in plain English, get rid of the geek speak, they won't understand how and how bad is the risk.
And I think we talked about last night when we were discussing this, that with the advent of the funding that's coming in from the federal government to help states and local counties secure their budgets to be able to acquire the technologies and the services that they need, is what do we do beyond that, right? Once that federal funding has initiated and been put in place, like, how do we sustain it going forward? So we can buy all these great services and software solutions and hardware, but then what do we do after the federal funding's not there, right? So from a vendor perspective, we have to be aware of that, right? We have to put programs in place that are reasonable, cost-effective, and meaningful for the state and local counties. That have to afford to procure this, ongoing. It just can't stop at this wave of Biden funding that we're all getting right now. But what do we do beyond that?
Right, and for me, it's been rare that my vendors take that approach. They don't question us about that. They're trying to make the sale. Working with us as partners, as our relationships grow with those partners, they start to understand that budget cycle. Right. Many of the vendors I've had for years already understand that. Right. But again, building your budgets, making sure your leadership understands, because with all the ARPA funds and all the things that happened during this pandemic, that's right, leadership was out, well, let's go buy stuff, get stuff, we're getting money, we're gonna do this. But we have to make them pause to understand, once that money's spent, right, in order to maintain what you have, you're going to have to build it into your budget, and sometimes they don't think about that. Right. They know they've got what they need right now, servicing the citizens, getting the employees working remote, but then it's, all right, there's going to be a ton of maintenance, a ton of licensing, upgrades, patching, all the things that come with it, trying to get them to understand that. And then when I was on the panel earlier in the conference, I brought it up, and for me, communications from us to leadership, it's imperative that we speak, they speak, so they understand where we're coming from. And I've learned, budget-wise, to get it, being able to meet with my board members, my elected officials, my executive leadership, one-on-one with them, talking to them, and not coming at them with, the sky's falling mentality and telling them, if I don't get it now, we're going to be done and our citizens will hate us forever and we'll be on the news. You just try and get them to understand. Now, I will take advantage of any other locality or state getting hit, and I will use that to the best that I can to make sure I get the funding. So how are your conversations with your customers? Mm-hmm. How do those go? How does your conversations go with your leaderships to get budget, to do the things?
Well, my conversations have gone very well because they understand, and we've proven our value and what we delivered. And it's because of our relationships with our vendors. Mm-hmm. What I see is the funding coming from the infrastructure bill is the first time we have an opportunity to truly secure the country from the ground up. Because traditionally, cybersecurity funds did not go down to the state and local level. And what we need the same sophisticated tools that the federal government has at the state level, at the county level, but we need our vendor partners to come up with that solution that scales, it's secure, it's manageable with a single pane of glass or light administration, because we don't have the staff to implement these tools. And we want to have that success that they have at the larger organizations at the lower level. So this cyber funding is the best opportunity we have to really strengthen our security across the board, if it's done right with good partnerships for our vendors.
Right, it's very opportunistic, and so it's great that we have the funding, but we also have to look at some of the counties who don't have those expert staff members, there to support the ongoing solutions that are being embedded. So vendors have to step up and understand that they need to deliver a managed type of service to some of the counties.
And priced according to the size of the jurisdiction they're going to be working with. Because I have great vendors that do provide stuff for us, but then of course they know that I chair this committee in the National Capital Region, so they're like, hey, can you get us in to talk to this county and this county? And I've done that, and I don't mind doing that, because I at least know that jurisdiction is going to secure themselves to at least the same level as me. But they come back, my counterparts come back and say, yeah, but I can't afford the price you paid.
Right.
Can they price it down? So then I end up negotiating, helping, and then it ultimately comes down to that leadership on that side, that jurisdiction, just making a decision. But vendors making sure they price it according to the size of the jurisdiction, the locality, the state, whatever it is.
They really need to look at this on a broader scale, right? We can't look at every single county as a one opportunity that we are pricing individually. We have to look at this as a holistic issue and look at the broad scope of how this is impacting the entire community, right? This isn't a Newcastle or New Brunswick or level issue. This is a global issue that we have to look at it from a scalability perspective. So we can't go in and say, all right, Fairfax County, who's a very large county, it has a broad scope in its cybersecurity budget, but where we have an underprivileged county that doesn't have the level of staff, the level of expertise, we cannot then raise that price to some exponentially unaffordable rate just because they don't have the scalability that we might see in a Fairfax County opportunity. So we really need to take a look at a different approach as a vendor community on how we're looking at securing our infrastructure from a global perspective as a sustainable country and a sustainable issue.
Yeah, so it's, I know in Texas you guys probably have, it's more volume, isn't it? Does it give you more buying power? And it's the same, I think, for Fairfax. I'm not sure how, sorry, Mike, I don't know how large your county is, but, for us,
not as big as Texas.
And just because we are a large county and we are like one of the richest counties in the country, it doesn't mean I'm going to pay a top dollar price because in my vendors, you know me, because you and I've worked together before. I'm going to take you through the coals to get my citizens the best price they can for what they're paying. And it's very hard, and I know that some of our missions, your mission, helping your other counties, is those smaller ones. You guys are able to set it up. I can do it for some of the towns and cities that we have in my county, but it still goes to when you look at the underprivileged counties that are out there that they don't have that, and then they don't have the leadership. That's why, for me, leadership has to be in a frame of mind to listen to anybody that they hire as a security person or as an IT expert. They've got to do that stuff. But I know you all do set up a lot of opportunities for your smaller counties, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you talked about leadership buy-in. You were also talking about making investments in tools and technology. Not to get too philosophical, but we know, that security is a journey, not a destination. So if you're making these spends and you haven't maybe already started your effort to really hone in your metrics and your KPIs or key performance indicators, that to your point, those business executives, the risk people, the legal people, to where you can say, hey, we made this investment and we've already been tracking number of incidents, number of alerts, number of blocks, number of false positives, and it made this effect. Then you can kind of show them the value of investing, because at the end of the day, your security program, every security program is people, process, and technology. And so how are you being a good steward of those funds and blending those things together to achieve success? Knowing you like you said, you always constantly have to evolve and be thinking about the next, Cyber Katrina or Cyber Rita or, whatever's coming our way.
Cyber Rita, that's a good one.
Cyber Harvey, as the case may be.
When you think about KPIs, we really shift this model from how many times we're being that attacks are coming or the vectors that's coming our way to a business side, to our executives. How much risk are you willing to fund, right, or accept? So you want your servers patched on day 1, day 10, or day 30, and there's a cost with that. And that's really the message when you talk about your leadership is how much risk are you willing to accept?
Yeah, and for me, that's going to take me to my soapbox, folks. It's leadership. Leadership. A lot of leaderships, they have their IT, agencies. They have their cybersecurity offices. They have us to do our job, and then they create risk because they wanted some flashy thing or some tool, but they don't want the policy applied to it that's going to make it accountable. It's going to make them accountable. And, we have very successful programs because our leadership gets it. The majority of this country is not as benefiting from that as we do. That, my mission, and I hope you all take the mission as well in your jurisdictions to help the smaller ones get their leadership to listen and understand. Because they're making these decisions that cause these risks and cause the vulnerabilities that are out there, besides the fact that you have hackers who are really trying to do it, and then you have software people making software that's not secure. But they're making decisions telling you to do it, and then when something happens with that, they're not holding themselves accountable.
Right.
But if we communicate with them on a regular basis,
Exactly.
now they're accountable and they're aware. They cannot say they weren't informed.
But you know, there's a language transformation that we have to get used to as well, because the people who are not in cyber don't quite understand what we're trying to convey to them, what the cyber risks are. And I think, Mike, we were all talking yesterday that even today, any MBA program that you go through does not require any sort of cyber courses to be taken in college, right? So you have a lot of business people coming out of school not having any education whatsoever on cyber or even understanding the implications of it. So we have to become really masters of the domain of the technology and the security aspects of our infrastructures, but we also then have to become these translators to individuals who don't necessarily understand what we're talking about when we're trying to convey the risks to them.
Yeah, and I can't remember who said it, and I apologize if you were in one of the sessions speaking about it, but it's, the schools, they're handing kids technology.
Yep.
And they're not teaching them how to use it. They're not teaching them how to properly use it or secure it. And it seems to me that the school issues I hear around the country, and even in Fairfax, but I don't run their cyber. The first thing those kids are trying to do is figure out how to hack this device they've gotten, so they can get past the internet filters. They can get past the permissions that are on the device, so they can download whatever they want. And I think in this country we need to do a lot better job of educating those kids. Right. But I have friends. I see some of my friends who have younger kids now. Mine are gone, but first thing they do is they're handing them an iPad when they go to a restaurant, when they go somewhere else. And those kids all know how to do it. And it's so funny to watch them do it, but no one's teaching them the proper way to do it. And that worries me for the future, because we started talking about bringing in kids from schools, colleges, doing internships, the things that, if we don't start doing it now, it's gonna get even worse, I think, the problems we will be seeing.
Well, in our roles, we're the stewards of the data. We have data we have to protect, and we have to maintain that confidence level for the citizens we serve. So security is the common thread across all business units, and it should, like, to your point, start at the youngest as we go through, and it should become part of the common conversation.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that the question of the whys, we have to say, here's why we have to secure this, and here's why we have to invest in this, because I don't think people innately understand that why, right? So we have to become better at being able to translate the complexities and the threats that we all innately understand to the people who don't understand them, right? So it's going to be a different dynamic shift that we all have to get used to, and helping educate the people who just don't understand security. I mean, I've been in companies many times. I've run some of the world's largest security programs out there, and people generally, if they are not in security, are terrified to start getting into the conversations of it. So how do we convey that why and to convey that risk to them that makes them interested in reacting and funding and supporting all of our efforts in it? So
again, doing it without making it as the sky is falling, and
it can't be chicken little.
Because I've seen that's the biggest thing that'll turn a leader off. If you
Yeah.
Is there something wrong?
No. I was just
You were looking at me like
I was just kind of thinking about what you were saying, and ways to we can get better at that, and some things maybe that have been successful. I know everyone's seen different maturity models, so we've gone out and done, whether it's county election security assessments or across state agencies, independent third-party maturity assessments, and then that gives those people an opportunity to say, hey, maybe it's a 0 to 5, and we're weak, we're in the low 2s or something, but that's not bad. We know that now, and now we have a clear roadmap for you to actually make a risk-based decision that ties back to a budget to say, let's move to a 2.5 or a 3 or closer to a 5.0.
Yeah, you just can't come in and tell them, there's a bunch of risk, but if you don't come in and give them options of how you can reach the goal of mitigating those risks, they really freak out and don't. And then all I ever hear is, security just costs too much.
Right, right.
But if you would build it in, vendors who build applications in technology would build security in from the beginning the right way. It would make our jobs a lot easier. It would make the data that you're giving up to the different businesses, the governments that that serve you. If these things would be built, because I mean we're looking at the Log4j vulnerability that's out there. It was shareware that everybody used in technology they developed. But no one looked close enough at what was actually behind that. And it caused a major problem across the world. I mean, and then the patches that came out were susceptible to denial of service. So my staff has been working like 24/7, applying a patch, finding out it's bad, reapplying a new patch. And I think we're at 3 iterations of that now. And it's coming back to the people who are creating these things. They got to start taking security and building it in first.
And that's the supply chain risk, right? How do we manage our vendor management models have shifted, and when you're a small organization, a small county or small state, you may not have that resources to do proper vendor management or supply chain risk assessments. That's where I think procurement coming together with creative procurement that bills like Texas does with the contracts that you offer to the counties. I leverage cooperative agreements, whether it's a state contract that I could piggyback on, or if there's a tool we know is the best of breed through communications with our fellow governments to say what works for you, we can leverage other municipal contracts that are legal under our procurement law. So there's ways to build that in, and that assumes the supply chain risk has been assessed. You know who you're buying from and what that risk potential is. That's a challenge, because I don't know who's doing it very well, but it's a new area we're working on.
Anyway, you got to try many different things that you can see which one works. I mean, in the National Capital Region, we do a lot of our work with public safety through grants, getting those grants, and we had talked about it a little bit earlier, getting all the funding from the pandemic money, and it's still money that your locality has to budget in eventually to maintain whatever it is you initially procured with that grant funding. So, and I like some of the ways in the things that you guys have discussed. So there may be some stuff that I hopefully can bring back to my smaller groups, my cities and towns that are in our county to help them out.
Because what I learned here was the complexity at the federal level, and you look at the one chart that was up the other day, it hurt your eyes. You're like, wow, how can you be agile? How can you be innovative? And if you're in a crisis, you need the products now.
Right.
And you have to have that mechanism to bring on the resources to respond to an event. And that's where you really have to get the procurement team on board and figure out those creative solutions prior to the crisis.
Right, definitely.
Because there's opportunities there. And I think vendors look at, a couple of vendors I spoke to said it's difficult to navigate the process. Well, it's really not if you look at it get on a national contract that's a cooperative agreement, that's leveraged by states, then can go to the county and city level. There's a huge market.
Definitely.
That we can build off of.
I would, be remiss if I didn't say that strong vendor partnerships as we're dealing with these challenges are key. Of course, you had to go Log4j, but that's okay. But I was just thinking as you said that, how many man hours just in this room, and then people we work with have put into trying to adapt to that and get it shored up. And so there's always going to be another WannaCry, a Heartbleed, a SolarWinds, a Log4j. But if you haven't started preparing, conversations with your vendor partners, with your teams, like we talked about earlier, multiple tools and staff, then it's going to be impossible to respond when those 0 days come out, right?
Exactly, and truly, and again, I'm going to go back to the people who create the applications, create the products. This really goes on to them making sure they do it right the first time. Right. Because for me, one of our critical applications, and I'm not going to say what it is, but it affects public safety in some way, shape, or form. This vendor's telling us right now, maybe in 3 months they'll get their product fixed because they don't have time, because they're trying to fix their other stuff first. Yeah. And to me, I have to go to the business and say, Chief, Sheriff, we have to cut your application off because it's vulnerable. And that doesn't go over well. It goes over like you wouldn't believe. But then the thing that happens is the process goes, then the chief goes to the executive.
The executive gets, or goes to the board, possibly could go to the public and people start complaining. And then it's all back to me going, well, you won't let me do my job. You won't let my guys do their job. My ladies doing their job because of that software.
Yeah.
I didn't create the vulnerability. Why isn't the vendor that you have working harder to fix it? And until they do, my job is to prevent the risk and the vulnerability. That's what I have to do. Yeah. So, of course, they're testing their COOP plans, seeing how they can work without it. But it's again back to the vendors making sure from the beginning they need to start doing the security. And I mentioned it before, these monitors, all these lights, they can't be sold, they can't be installed without an underwriter's laboratory sticker. We need that in our technology industry for the technology and the software and the things that are coming out. But then that's going to be a bigger argument. What standard is that going to be, that they're going to compare that product to or assess that product to put that label on there? We've got to come up with that. Right. Does the federal government need to do that? Does industry need to do that to themselves to make it be a better partnership and a better ability for us to secure the things we need if we know they follow that standard?
There's going to be a catalyst, right, that's going to push people into that mode, right? So it's ultimately going to end up being something that the federal government will have to step in and say, and mandate certain levels of security or cadence across the development of the solutions that are rolling out in critical infrastructure.
So how does it impact our cost to acquire that product?
Exactly.
Now we're forcing you to increase your R&D and
right.
Yeah, and it shouldn't. I don't think that the process shouldn't be anything that takes forever. It really shouldn't be that. We should be able to hone that process down because I know it's all about time to market. Yeah. Because it all goes back to the dollar. That's what they're trying to make. But how much money is being spent mitigating the crap that they put out? If it's not any good, versus if they would take the time to put it in, maybe they could charge more for their product because they had to put more into it. There's ways they can still make the money. We can get it to market.
It comes back to that leadership discussion that we were talking about, right? So at some point in that leadership chain, they understand that they are not investing in the due diligence to ensure that the products that are being put out in the market are secure, that they've gone through an SDLC that is segmented and managed and methodical, and that they are rolling out with some assurances that this product doesn't have, fill in the blank type of vulnerability that's going to expose their customers to all sorts of risks that they don't need to take. So leadership ultimately, we've talked about this 1,000 times, but leadership ultimately needs to step up, understand the risks that are out there in the market and accept them, and then tell the market, look, we accepted this risk to begin with, so we rolled this out with this vulnerability. But I mean, leadership is at the core. Really. I
agree, and the beauty where I'm at, and my concern is always for the other jurisdictions. And Mike, you and I sit on advisory board for NACO, for National Association of Counties. We know. You and I sat in a conference in San Diego, and we could hear some of the horror stories of these counties who don't have a program.
Right.
And to me, somebody needs to be accountable for that. And I'm very fortunate in Fairfax. I can go to my leadership and say, look, this business unit wants this package. Here's the vulnerabilities we had. The vendor can't meet these certain things. I need you all to sign a piece of paper that says you accept the risk. I'm getting to be where now it's like 90% of the time, they're like, we're not buying it. Good. But there are some things that they will sign off on it. And for me, it gives me a comfort level for my staff, knowing my staff they're doing everything they can so that if something hits that vulnerability, we're not going to be the ones the finger's pointed to. Right. They're going to be prepared to pay for whatever mitigation through cyber insurance, our risk, our fundings that we have to help cover that. So it's again a leadership role.
Really?
And that's why I love that Don brings us out to these conferences, because there's a lot of leaders out here that need to hear this and need to understand this. And a lot of you as citizens in the counties that you need to hold your leadership accountable for whatever services they're providing you, and you're giving up that data, you need to know how are they using it. I mean, and I heard it again in one of the other sessions, is, it's your data. You should own it. You have to do the services with your government, so you're going to have to provide that data for them to do those services. But you should still be able to say, what do they use that data for?
Exactly.
And a lot of people, they assume the government's doing it, and you would be surprised across this country how many people are not doing it.
And you look at the cloud, we all have the programs cloud first. Well, pushing that data out to where, to who, and what does that solution security look like? There's an assumption that if it's hosted by a vendor, I'm good.
Great, right.
And leadership needs to understand there's still accountability, there's resources required to support the cloud, and you still own the risk. It's like submit your tax form, right? Ultimately, it's you, the individual, it's you, your leadership is responsible, wherever that data ends up.
Yeah, most definitely, and the cloud providers and any company providing services that use cloud or whatever their service is, I've noticed it more and more recently because of the way we do business with anybody. Is I need to know what their risk footprint is, what their risk models are, how do they provide incident response within their group. So it's funny to watch these companies' faces when you go, I need your last risk assessment, and I need to know, out of that assessment, what did you mitigate, how long did it take? And they're like, well, that's internal information, we're not going to provide it. And I said, well, you're not getting my citizens' data until I know, because I want to know what happens if you are breached. When do I get notified? Because I have to notify my citizens. Exactly. And a lot of companies right now are trying to stop from having to provide that info, but you make it simple. Yeah. Well, you just don't do business with us unless you do.
Right.
Right. And we assume they're patching, right? We assume like the Log4j. We have no idea what's behind their architectures and their infrastructure. We're, again, assuming we're covered. Right. Are we? Who's accountable? Them or us?
Right. Well, thank you all. I mean, we've still got some time left, but since we were made to wait so long, and Don affectionately again put me up here with my esteemed panel after that rockin' party last night. So I think we're kind of feeling it, but I just wanted to thank you all for sticking around and listening to us. I want to thank my panel, my esteemed colleagues up here. Just please go back to your localities. If you don't live in Fairfax County, even if you live in Fairfax, go back and ask your folks that have your data what they're doing with it. How are they securing it? And are they funding a cyber program within your jurisdiction? Because I think your government owes you that, because you're depending on them to run the services that they have, and you're paying your taxes for it. So make sure you go back and ask them about that, and then I'd love to hear if any of you do. Come and talk to me and let me know what they say. But again, thank you all. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Come on. Oh, sorry.
Oh, Mike, you can go do whatever you have to do. Continuing on the cybersecurity theme, and also when we conclude, we're going to talk a little bit about what our plans are for the rest of the year, the 8 programs of the GBF and how they're going to be structured, and also about what our plans are for a cyber conference in July that our next speaker is going to be working with us on. And Brian Harrell was with us in July, and we invited him to come back to speak himself, because look, what happened, the whole Columbia pipeline, the critical infrastructure being in the news so much now about cybersecurity, and he runs one of our countries, or he's Chief Security Officer and Vice President for Avangrid, one of the largest energy providers in the United States. And he comes to it with a background, most important was he was Deputy Director, Assistant Secretary for CISA at the Department of Homeland Security. And he's been with us for the last few days, and I know what it's like, a lot going on weather-wise and everything else in the Northeast, so to have him here is really special. And many of you have spoken to him already. He will be working with us in the months ahead as we head into July, so please welcome Brian Harrell. Thanks, Brian.
No, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, good morning, everyone. pleasure to be here Saturday morning after a Friday night in Las Vegas. But darn good to be here, and thank you to EDGE22. Thank you for Don for inviting me. Over the next 15 minutes, really what I want to do is talk a little bit about what we saw this past year in 2021, but also what is it that we're paying attention to in 2022. I think none of what I'm about ready to say is going to surprise you necessarily, but nonetheless, it's all about making the investments. It's about making the relationships count now with respect to the budget and planning, and again, being that chief storytelling officer in the C-suite when we're asking about the things that we need and articulating and understanding what that threat actually looks like. So attacks on our sector within the energy sector are obviously pretty significant. Right now, we are recovering, so to speak, after a pretty active 1 year, this past 12 months in the electricity sector, in the energy sector at large. I will tell you, the first week back from Christmas and New Year's holiday, we dealt with 5, count them, 5 in 1 week, potential supply chain third-party compromises within our system. Fortunately, knock on wood, I think we're very, very good. We're in a good spot. We have good response and recovery plans. But nonetheless, I think it really points to the idea that you can dot the I's and you can cross the T's, and you feel like, by and large, you have a good cybersecurity program, good national security program. But what about those that we depend on? What about those outside of our organization? Are they as secure as we are? So a couple of things that I want to really talk about today is, number one, the threat landscape is absolutely changing. Today, we are focused on nation-state adversaries. Every single day on my system, we have north of 10,000 attacks. That is a lot. I don't think that surprises many of you, but that's active scanning. That's people trying to bounce things off of our firewall. But every single day in the energy sector, trust me when I say we are a target for nation-state adversaries, for hacktivists, et cetera. And so being prepared, understanding what the attack methods are, understanding what those tactics, techniques, and procedures are that are being utilized and deployed against us is absolutely critical. One of the lessons learned that I think we saw in 2021, and I said it on my panel earlier this week, and that is the cavalry is not coming. We need to, within our own systems, have the ability to come back to homeostasis as quickly as we possibly can. I will tell you, after having served as the Assistant Secretary for Infrastructure Protection at the Department of Homeland Security, after having stood up, or at least helped stand up, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, within DHS, I will tell you that there is not this large group of people that are standing by waiting for you to have an issue to simply pounce on you in your time of need. It doesn't exist. Now, what we have seen over the last year, we have a lot of interested eyes. We have a lot of interested parties that are constantly calling you during response and recovery mode, whether it's at the state level, it's at the federal level, it's at the intelligence level, it's your regulators, et cetera. You have a lot of interest out there that aren't necessarily providing a ton of value back to you, but nonetheless, you have to take those phone calls. But I will tell you that in terms of people coming on site to help you, it simply doesn't exist. You need to have the ability to come back to homeostasis as quickly as possibly can. And you do that through your response and recovery plans. You do this through existing relationships with partners, and then also you do this through the vendor community. I think oftentimes we like to do the Heisman to our vendor community and say, no, we don't want you here. You're not welcome around the table. When in reality, the first 1 or 2 phone calls during your time of crisis, your time of concern, happens to be to that vendor. So the vendor community is a part of the solution set here in the United States. One of the major lessons learned I think we saw in 21 as well is having proper backups that you have tested. Not that you think you have, not that you hope you have, but that you have tested day in and day out. You have the ability to operate manually if you have to. That seems somewhat counterintuitive though. as we move towards the Internet of Things, as everything becomes more and more connected every single day, you would think that technology is your savior. It's going to move us down the road. And to a certain extent, that is true. But we must also have the ability to operate manually as well. And I think what we saw during Colonial, what we see in the utility sector at large, is we need to have the ability to go back to 1985, if we have to, and operate manually. Understanding our gaps. It's on the folds. It's on the margins. It's where we're not looking is where attackers are going to try and exploit. And I think when we understand the tactics, techniques, and procedures of our nation-state adversaries, we can best mitigate our systems because we can use what I call the A word. And the A word is anticipate. I will anticipate that China wants to steal data. I will anticipate that Russia wants to embarrass the United States government. I will anticipate that North Korea and Iran want to attack, but their capability is somewhat limited at the moment. Significant risks from third party. I kind of opened with this. Again, we've had a lot of concern when it comes to third party concerns. Again, you dot the I's, you cross the T's, you have a very good compliance program or a security program at large, but what about those that you also depend on? What about those that have the ability to remote access into your system to provide critical updates or to move power from point A to point B or to clean your drinking water? You know, what about the vendors that we're utilizing? Are they as safe as we are? And lastly, information sharing is absolutely critical. And this seems very, very obvious. Right after I get off stage today, here in about 10 minutes, you will see another article somewhere out there on the internet talking about the importance of information sharing. But are we really doing it? I will say our federal partners are doing a fantastic job of it. They truly are. And I can say this kind of wearing both hats most recently. CISA, the FBI, et cetera, they are pushing good information into private sector space. But, however, the private sector, I don't think, in my estimation, is doing as good of a job as pushing information into federal space. Because where they see the larger landscape, they're able to put puzzle pieces together. They have the labs and the ability to rip down malware, understand where it has come from, and ultimately put together good indicators of compromise for all of industry to use. Looking forward in 22, PowerPoint is up now. Looking forward in 22, we are seeing pandemic level of proportion for ransomware. It's here. It is here to stay. We had a great conversation on Thursday about to pay or not to pay. That is the question. If you were to ask me just a couple years ago when I was leading CISA, I would say, of course, you should never, ever pay. Today, I'm back in the private sector where I came from. I will say this is a business level decision, decisions that are made by the C-suite behind closed doors where we understand that, look, in order to come back to homeostasis, in order to do response and recovery, to get our hospitals back up and running, our police stations back up and running, there may be an incidence where we may have to pay. I hope that is never ever the case. What I have tried to get my executives comfortable with is a little bit of muscle memory when it comes to this particular issue. To deal with ransomware in a time of need when it is actually happening in our system and talking about the verbiage, talking about response and recovery for the first time is a mistake in the making. We need to now, under blue sky conditions, talk through what ransomware looks like. What does it look like for our regulators, for our customers, for our staff, and how quickly can we restore our system, either utilizing manual backups and bringing in the vendor community to help us solve the particular issue. Domestic terrorism. This is an uncomfortable issue for all of the United States. Right now, domestic terrorists, they fully understand that the bulk power system, the electric grid for the United States and Canada is a very, very attractive target. If you go into the dark web, if you go into some of these chat rooms and portals in the deep, dark areas of the internet, you're seeing a lot of chatter when it comes to domestic terrorists focusing their efforts on trying to destroy electric infrastructure. There's a lot of bang for the buck there. They're big hunkin' metal ugly things out there that if you were to strategically place a bomb or a backpack or target that particular infrastructure, it will get you on the media. It will get you in the news that night. And these terrorists, they absolutely understand it, and they understand, how can I hurt the United States government? How can I hurt big industry? Well, I can do it through targeting electric infrastructure. Insider threats. I am absolutely convinced that the next major attack that happens here in the United States does not necessarily happen from outside of our firewall. It doesn't necessarily happen from outside of our perimeter fence. It happens from within. People who understand how your system works, people who have unescorted access, they understand what the crown jewels are, and they have the keys to the kingdom to make significant changes within your system. Do you have an insider threat program that is monitoring individuals, trusted individuals within your system? Do you have the ability to see that proprietary information is leaving IT and going to somebody's Gmail, your competitor, or a nation-state adversary overseas? If the answer is no, or I don't know, I will tell you that this is a smart investment in terms of money for your budget moving forward. And then lastly, drones. And we had a great presentation up here earlier, multiple presentations on drones. I'll tell you just a quick little story. A couple years ago, my sons were 8 and 10 years old respectively, and I gave them a homework assignment. I said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go out to Toys R Us, when there still was a Toys R Us. And for $100, we're going to go out and buy a drone. And here's the homework assignment. What I want you to do is come up to about 25 feet and figure out how to drop this 6-inch piece of PVC pipe. That's it. That's the assignment. So a couple of weeks goes by because we have baseball and school and things like that. And sure enough, they come running back into the house. Dad, come take a look. And they're all smiles. And sure enough, they come up to about 35 feet. And with a very crude Bluetooth contraption and a claw, they drop this 6-inch piece of PVC pipe. And they're high-fiving each other because they just came through for Dad. But for about $104, 8 and 10 years old respectively, they drop this 6-inch piece of PVC pipe. And in my mind, it's going into a piece of critical infrastructure. It's going into a stadium. It's going into an airport, et cetera. And instead of it being empty, it's filled with rocks, nails, screws, C4, et cetera. Today is the day that we need to be thinking about drones used as a weapon. Now, within the critical infrastructure space, I will tell you that drones are an awesome tool. When it comes to the response and recovery after a hurricane, when it helps me understand what poles need to go back in the ground, how many people are still outaged and don't have electricity yet, it is a great, great tool. But with a great tool also comes some nefarious purposes. With that tool, and we utilize them, with that tool, I also want to highlight the fact that if you own and operate a Chinese manufactured drone in your system, you are potentially introducing and incurring risk, period. Back in April of 2019, when I was at CISA, we pushed out an alert to industry on this exact issue. There are a number of critical infrastructure companies across the United States right now that are utilizing Chinese manufactured drones, and there is a risk there, and they don't even understand it. This is not the boogeyman. I have seen this with my own eyes. If you go into LinkedIn, you could probably figure out where I was back in the day. But I have also seen it while at DHS, where information is leaving somebody's proprietary IT system and literally going overseas, and they are none the wiser. So this is truly happening. So with drones and such a great tool, also understand there is a nefarious purpose behind what some bad actors might be trying to implement. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is, I think, my 15 minutes. Thank you so very much. If there's one thing that I can leave you today, though, is we are not in this by ourselves. We do absolutely need to embrace collective defense, where the USG, private sector, and the American citizen are all in this together. I think we have moved over the last 15 years away from, well, this utility over here and this utility over there, they are my competitors, and I'm not going to share information. Today, what impacts me absolutely impacts them, potentially impacts you. We are all in this together. So embracing collective defense, let it not just be simply the bumper sticker that we might have on the back of our car, but instead something that we're actively embracing. And with that, thank you so very much. Have a great rest of the day.
Nice job, Brian. That was really good. All right. Sometimes you save the best for last. When the U.S. Space Command was formed several years ago, they basically went and handpicked people from each of the branches of the service to come and join them. And our next speaker, you'll see, fits the bill of being one of the best. He has quite a background. He has his PhD from the Colorado School of Mines, and he was handpicked to be the first Deputy CIO and first Chief Data Officer for the U.S. Space Command. He's served 2 tours in Iraq. He's a U.S. Army Colonel career, and we are delighted to have him here with us this morning. Colonel Teeter. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And I'll have to apologize. I might have had a little too much fun at the concert last night, so my voice is going to sound a little froggy. And I'll say, first, I just really want to thank, Don and team, the GBEF team. This is my first GBEF event in July. General Shaw was here on behalf of our command. And I will say that this event is world-class by all means, and the opportunities to interact with the industry, and not necessarily the traditional industry that I see within the Department of Defense, but also industry that interacts with other government agencies, and then also the opportunity to interact with those other government agencies in this panel. So I just really appreciate it and wanted to say that up front. Thank you to the team, and thank you to GBEF for having us. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about Space Command and space. So I think we've all seen how important space is. I mean, it's really, we take it for granted. It's an integral part of our life, the way of life of not just the American people, but the world. From anywhere from our financial transactions to just getting our ATM card to the streaming services that we have, through the communication and all of that. So we see that space is an integral part of our life, and it's just growing in capacity and in capability and what it's providing. And so it's becoming very congested within space, as there's multiple spacefaring on the commercial side and the countryside. There's the spacefaring nations continue to grow, which is a good thing. But as it becomes congested, it's also starting to become contested. And this is really gets at the genesis of why a Space Force, why a Space Command at this time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the contested part of space. As we've seen, the CCP in 2007 sent a rocket into space, a destructive collision with one of their own satellites, and caused over 3,000 debris articles. Over 2,000 of those are still in orbit now, causing really just free flowing that we have to pay attention to. Not the most responsible behavior that we're looking for. Just as recently as November, Russia did the same thing, producing 1,500 trackable objects that are now in orbit, that now we have to pay attention to and conduct unscheduled maneuvers and really for the safety of life on the ISS, track these. And we have the ISS there in the orbit, and so with human life now. And so you see the continued weaponization of space by CCP and Russia, and it's really becoming a contested environment. And so with that, the establishment of U.S. Space Command was necessary to really protect our allies and our interests on orbit, to protect and defend what's on orbit. So in August of 2019, in the Rose Garden ceremony, U.S. Space Command was established, August 29th of 2019. And so now I'll talk a little bit on U.S. Space Command and its establishment. So it's within the Department of Defense, you have combatant commands that are the warfighting arm of the Department of Defense. And so you may have heard of European Command or Central Command, and they have a certain region that they're responsible for any Department of Defense operations within that region. And so we are one of the 11th combatant command established for that. It's a joint command, so all services represented. And we're actually a geographic combatant command, and so our geography really starts at the Kármán line, 100 kilometers above sea level, roughly the Kármán line, and goes out to the known universe, really. So it's quite a large geographic AOR, even though we have the fewest people in about 8, I think, on the ISS today, maybe 9. But obviously a large responsibility, and we have to be global by nature and by design in how we approach the effort there. And then as part of that, when we were established, we have under the Unified Campaign Plan, we have assigned missions specifically to our command, and with those missions, really we have 2 functional, so now I'll talk internal to U.S. Space Command. So when we stood up, a lot of the units that reported to us existed, and they were just piecemealed through various different commands across, with the majority of them coming from U.S. Strategic Command, which has also got responsibility for our nuclear arsenal, and even General Hyten at the time was a STRATCOM commander and now just recently retired Vice Joint Chief of Staff, said that on any given day, space was never going to be higher than 3rd, just because of the other responsibilities he had associated with the defense mission he had and the nuclear mission he had. And so the need to have somebody to pay attention to Space Command was evident. And so within that command, as we established it, there were 2 functional components internally. We have about 18,000 in our command assigned, and the 2 functional components went after the UCP, what we call UCP missions. And one of them is the Combined Forces Space Component Command, headquartered at Vandenberg Air Force Base on the California coast. And they have to provide space effects globally across for all of it. And that's your SATCOM capability, your GPS, PNT, etc. And then we also have the Joint Task Force Space Defense, and they're really our up and out component, and they're really there to protect our on-orbit assets, protect our allies, and our partners' assets, and that's where with France and Great Britain being a part of this is absolutely phenomenal also, as they've established their space commands also. And so we have a great relationship with them, have been over there. They have a space operations centers that they're standing up and have stood up. And so they're great partners in this, as well as some other nations and our allies and partners, which is a big part of what we do at U.S. Space Command. And now internally looking down, you have our 2 functional that really get after the mission, but we also have, as a combatant command, we have the services under us. And so here I'll pause for a minute because it can be confusing. Even when I go to the Pentagon, I have to explain the difference between Space Command and Space Force. And so as Barry said, I'm in the U.S. Army and work at a combatant command, the joint side. Now, Space Force, in December of 2019, Space Force was established there in the hangar on Andrews. And General Raymond at the time was the Space COM commander, and then became the Chief Space Operations Officer for the newly established Space Force. And now Space Force is equivalent, it's a service, and so think Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, and they have certain responsibilities by law. They have Title 10 responsibilities, and those Title 10 responsibilities come under the Organized, Train, and Equip. And so they will be presenting forces, or they do now, and the Space Force really has established themselves so far with 3 field commands. They have a Space Training and Readiness Command, STARCOM, and then they have a Space Systems Command, SSC, out in LA Air Force Base. That was formerly SMC. And then they have their field command that is our component, the Space Operations Command out of Peterson Air Force Base. And that is our Space Force component to U.S. Spacecom. So a little bit there, I know it can be confusing, and I get asked that question quite a bit, so I just wanted to provide that background and clarity on difference between Space Force and Space Command. Now, the other service components, we have an Army component, Space and Missile Defense Command. They're headquartered out of Huntsville, Alabama. And then we have a Marine component, Marine Forces Space, and a Navy component, Navy Forces Space. And then we actually have an Air Force component also, the 1st Air Force, which they're out of Tyndall Air Force Base in Florida, and they're really there for one of our missions from the UCP that I talked before was the human space flight support. And so one of our missions that is really done behind the scenes most of the time is providing that human space flight support. So anytime there's a launch, so if Blue Horizons or SpaceX or anybody is going into a space launch, we actually provide really the 911 in case there is something that needs to happen. Then we are providing that support to them, or even on their re-entry if something happens, and we're always on standby ready to do it. And of course with NASA or any of the crewed launches that we're doing, then we provide that human space flight support. And so that gets across our components. So that's a little bit on our structure side. What I would like to do is talk also on the importance of interagency. So one of the pieces that came out from various space directives is that we have to be interagency. So we have to be great partners with NASA. Obviously, to share launch facilities, to get after all of the efforts, the Artemis effort, the other NASA efforts that they have. So NASA, by nature, we have to be interagency with them. Department of Commerce, it was charged with taking over the space traffic management. So the space traffic management, similar to airspace management, is going to become more and more important. And right now, we provide it to the world through our the CIFSIC organization I talked to. We track the space objects and we provide that for free to the world, similar to the same way we provide GPS and push GPS out to the world. But eventually, Department of Commerce will take over that mission. And so we're working closely with them on transitioning that mission. The allies and partners, we have sharing agreements with over 30 nations. Our allies and partners are absolutely integral to space. Space, one of the efforts that we are really trying to get after, as I talked about threats earlier. So as you start to see what's called counter space weapons, so weapons really that are there to disrupt or to not allow freedom of maneuver within space. You see that rising more and more from Russia and the CCP, and so as that becomes more contested, then we will have to really establish a capability to protect and defend that, but also work with our allies and partners and leverage their capabilities in sharing the space there and establishing norms of behavior. The norms of behavior amongst the sea is a good example. When you're shipping lines in your international waters, there's already accepted norms of behavior when how close vessels can come to each other without identifying how the approaches they take. Within space, these aren't as well as established yet, and these accepted behaviors to keep space free for everyone and really to help make it uncontested, we have to come to an agreement and have some conversations and have these tough conversations with Russia and CCP. And in fact, we've had a couple bilateral talks. General Shaw, for those that were here in July, has had the opportunity to engage with his Russian counterparts to really try to establish what's the accepted norms of behavior to really provide freedom maneuver on orbit for all nations and for the globe. And as more spacefaring nations are in our domain, then the more important it will be to have these accepted behaviors. The other change, so General Shaw was here in July, had an opportunity to speak. In August, General Dickinson, the current Spacecom commander, declared IOC, which is initial operating capability. Now, does that mean we couldn't do our mission for about just shy of 2 years before? No, we did. We could do our mission from day one, our UCP assigned tasks. But what it did do is the IOC is really the inflection point as we grow into a mature command. And it was an opportunity, so we really had to spend about 2 years just sorting out how to be a command, how to get the staff processes. And now we have the opportunity to really rise to the strategic level and really start engaging across the departments, engaging across with our allies and partners and looking at that. And so then as part of that IOC declaration was again establishing the Chief Data Officer. Now kind of gets to where I am. So that gives you all the background to kind of give you who's Mike Teeter on the stage. The Chief Data Officer position, as you've heard several times in several different panels, data is king or data is foundational, or I think the Chief of AI at Health and Human Services spends 80% of his time, getting the data right before he can do his AI piece, and that's not uncommon across anybody who touches it understands that, and so the commander saw the importance of it, and so established just this July the Chief Data Office, and now has the opportunity again as part of that declaring IOC to really start having somebody, and that's really what keeps me up at night. I know a couple panels ago where they were talking drones, and he's talking weather data. Well, it's not just weather data; it's space data. It's all the data, the security of the data. Somebody needs to eat, breathe, and sleep, and worry about that data and that data security and that governance in it, and really what we're trying to do at U.S. Space Command is get across that we are really a digital native combatant command, and those familiar, it's probably about 20 years ago now. I think in 2000, 2002, there was an article that talked about digital migrants. I'm a digital migrant. I remember the time where there was not cell phones, there was not internet, as I imagine a lot in this room remember that time. But my kids are digital natives. To them, that was the 1900s. That was way ages ago. But the idea that they don't know any different. Now, us as a combatant command, we were established obviously just 2 years ago. So we were a digital native combatant command, but what does that mean? And how do we implement that? And so that's really my challenge, and that's this. As we move forward, we're really getting after culture, so really making the culture of the organization data-centric and data-literate, and understanding, and really as part of that culture, the talent acquisition, that as I'm sure everybody in this room has to deal with to some degree, the talent that's out there is in high demand, and so really getting after and really encouraging folks to get after the STEM degrees, the computer science degrees, the data engineering degrees, and all of that. So we are partnering with various academic institutions to really try to drive home that, and also bring in interns. The other piece that we, again, is technology, and that CES is a great place to come see the technology available. So there's lots of current technology that we could leverage to get after our message, and then a lot of emerging technology, and you get into quite a bit as we go forward. So we're going after the culture and the technology, and then the last piece is really the data. The data is the foundational data, and the data management, the data governance, and the data structures. That's really where we're again, trying to implement and look internal, because as you know, when we formed, and as I mentioned earlier, we formed, brought in Army units, brought in Space Force units that were Air Force units, and then became Space Force units, and so all of these come with their own legacy structures and communications, and we have to bring that and marry it together. And so it's a great challenge to have. and I pinch myself quite a bit because I'm just thankful to have the opportunity to be there as the Chief Data Officer and be part of the command. And it's since its inception and standing up the Chief Data Office there. And so I'm excited for what's to come. And as I look forward, then we will absolutely be partnering with industry. We already are partnering with industry, partnering with other agencies, and really to get after the Space Command mission of, and so I really appreciate that opportunity. And I will say the importance of space isn't lost on anyone, I don't think, but I think the urgency to get it right and protect our on-orbit assets and really accomplish the mission of bringing space to be uncontested, to have the freedom of maneuver, to have the ability to open it up for the globe to participate and increase the spacefaring nations and increase the participation, I think is through the security and providing the security of it. The same way that our Navy does in the seas and the Army does on land, the Space Force now will enable SpaceCom to go forward and do that within the space domain. And so I thank you for your time and this opportunity to talk. And I'll just close it the same way General Dickinson closes most of his speech and just say that we are here so that there will never be a day without space. Thank you.
Well, Colonel Teeter, that was outstanding, and it really makes you feel good to know that we have people in our military like Colonel Teeter that are supporting us. I don't know about you all, but I had that warm feeling. Another round for Colonel Teeter, man.
Jeanette, Barry, everyone, it feels like we just got here.
We can restart all over.
Yes.
Yeah, it was, we're gonna, before we do a few thank yous, we want to talk a little bit about our plans for the Government Business Executive Forum agenda for 2022 and some plans we have for this summer. Membership, honestly, for the first time is completely sold out. So we have 60 members. So we have now the challenge of executing. It's not a challenge. I think we're looking forward to putting together a program that's really different and unprecedented in a couple of ways. So to our members we are going to produce 8 programs, and as many as we can, hopefully all 8, but we're going to have a federal focus that will be probably mostly at the Tower Club, and it'll be a mission, it'll be the technologies that drive it, and we will have a GBF member that we would like to have in Europe, and we would like one in a state jurisdiction, and we will get them there, where we will, at the Tower Club for the program, there will be a complimentary official in a European and NATO partner nation. We'll be working with Gilbert and Ian and Lim in the Netherlands and putting together a program that's highly complementary to the federal mission. Because as we say in the GBF, yes, we're focused on federal government, United States missions, but every mission of every mission of the United States necessarily is executed in another jurisdiction. And at the same time, part of that 90-minute program that will take place at the Tower Club will also include a GBF member in a state and local jurisdiction with an official that has a complementary responsibility. We have some plans for research that we will be utilizing, working with our partner Gavini, who put a riveting analysis together, a little depressing, but a riveting analysis together for us this year. And what it does for our federal partners, it makes it a different kind of invitation. It gives them the opportunity to participate with officials that are doing similar things in other jurisdictions. And for us, it gives a rich program for our members and helps us build a set of speakers that will meet us, ideally as many as possible, here in Las Vegas next January. And putting that program together, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. West a little bit about what we're going to be looking
Thanks, Don.
at.
Yeah, give us feedback. We want to hear from our members as we construct these programs over the next couple months, but please give us feedback. We're going to be updating our website as well with a lot of changes. We realize it's been pretty static, and we're going to try to get that up to date more and keep it really current here in the new year.
As a matter of fact, the website will, you're right, to that point, will come down. It'll come up with a new look. We hope to have the agenda as almost finalized in terms of dates, and we hope not to deviate so much from the dates this year. I just think back on the last time that we were in Las Vegas in January. We had great plans, and it was January 2020. So it was, knock on wood, that's not going to hit us. That thing's going to go away. Right. But I'd like to start with the thank yous.
Thank you to all our sponsors that are out there, obviously, that really keep this moving along for us. Our team, this team that Don has put together, amazing team that's went out of their way to really make sure that this was successful in all aspects. A lot of behind the scenes work that goes on to pull off an event like this. The band that agreed to come again was outstanding. The AV team, this AV team here rocks, and a lot of last minute things that they had to shuffle around to keep things moving, but just a very good coordinated effort, and we really thank everybody for their contributions.
Yep, and a few of those have, just to build on it, is that starting going backwards and front from what you said, Audio Visual Productions out of Richmond has, they produce every one of our events in Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., and we bring them out here to interact with to intersect with the Las Vegas team here to produce what's really for us. It was pretty daunting when we came here in July. They're getting better at it. And of course, our team now, as Mary Shea is just invaluable in terms of the logistics and the planning and the management. We also added, many of you got to know our new vice president that we brought in, Laura Hudson, whose background is more than 10 years as Gary Shapiro's right hand. And of course, she was chief of staff to Secretary Chow in the Department of Transportation. All of our team is, Sarah back there produced what you just saw up there in, like, I don't know, in the last hour, and does a great job at producing our videos and managing the production of the ones that open this conference and everything else. And Jeanette, a special thank you to you. What a pleasure it was to work with you this year.
With you.
It really was. And I'd like to give them a round of applause, all of those people a round of applause first. And you know, what we're going to produce this summer is going to be small because we want to capture the opportunity for you to be able to interact, and not with thousands of people, but maybe with 200 people. But really the big thank you goes to every single attendee who got here, because you know what it was like? Everything was done in December. And then I'm looking, Barry and I are talking, because it's like, it's a little thing in South Africa. They've only got like one person that identified with it, and oh my God. But for all of you to, you know, finally we get to enjoy Christmas, everything's done, and our first day here, what was it, 1 million cases, and every one of you, it did something special. It wasn't easy to get here, but you really are what makes this work. And
we had a lot of government executives going into their boss's office saying, no, I am going to EDGE.
And that is leadership.
And these are the people that are here that are already going and committed.
And we really are so proud and appreciative of, because we have a vision to produce something special and different, and every one of our attendees is the reason why we're able to work with you on, and we hope you feel like you're not attending a conference, but you're part of an experience, and that's what we say. And so we wish every one of you a great 2022.
And stay
We'll see you in
tuned.
July.
Stay tuned for the more information on the cyber event. We don't have the cyber summit. We don't have the exact dates yet in July, but stay tuned as we finalize that.
And a couple things are going to happen today and tomorrow. Number one, Mike Dent and Barry West have no chance of bowling. And I'll take bets, so this is Las Vegas. And number two, the Chargers are going to kick the you-know-what out of the Las Vegas Raiders tomorrow.
There will be a Chargers team that goes back to LA very upset that they've just lost to the Raiders.
We're both going to be there. That's all right. Thank you all. Have a great year, and we'll see you soon.